I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You know, I was thinking in preparing for the meeting that we've been doing this in Harwich for over 300 years, and in these difficult times, town meeting endures, and it does so because of the civic pride you folks have, and it's a credit to your resiliency to come out, because we can put the warrant together and set the stage, but without the voters, there is no meeting. So I know all of us up here appreciate very much your coming out and supporting the meeting. A couple of, just to kind of get the feel as to how we're going to proceed this morning. It will be a regular town meeting. I'll review the rules of procedure briefly in a moment and then get started. But notwithstanding the rumors you may have heard on the way in, I checked with the selectmen and they're not serving lunch. And so as a result, that may give you an idea as to when I think we're going to finish, because I'd like us all to be somewhere for lunch. So that's the goal, that's a target, that we kind of have an expeditious meeting, but still a meeting in which there's full and fair debate, and certainly if anybody has something to say, you'll get heard. So I'd like to thank just a few people who were instrumental in helping to set this up. Your fire, police, DPW, health, school personnel, I mean, all worked. This just didn't happen with all this outside. And so my kudos to them, and of course, they were directed by our town administrator. And so my thanks, and the thanks to everybody up here, to that whole crew that put this together. So another organization I need to thank is the members who were here from the Community Emergency Response Team. They're called an unofficial group that's gotten together and provided services during COVID, not only at this town meeting but at others. There's the so-called CERT team, and they'll be working today on the microphones. And this is the way we're going to do the microphones. There is a microphone up here that you're welcome to come up and use if you want to address the meeting from up here, as always. But rather than go to the individual microphones, given the distance and having to walk through and around people, the members of the CERT team are going to bring the microphone to you. So when I recognize you, just stand up where you are. The microphone will be brought to you, depending on your location, and then it'll be sanitized. They have sanitation equipment with them, and it's Jane in the middle and Dave to my right, and I guess it's Joanne to the left. Those are the members of the CERT team that have volunteered to do this. They did the Chatham town meeting outside. They've done other town meetings. I know they're returning to Chatham next week. They've offered these services, and so they're experienced at this. So we're going to see how that works, and I think that'll be a safe way to do it and an easy way. So rather than walk around, I encourage you to take advantage of the portable microphones that the CERT volunteers will bring to you. Our quorum is 150 by bylaw and charter. The selectmen, with my consent, reduced it to 100 in the state of emergency, just in case, notwithstanding all the preparations, we didn't get it. I'm pleased to say, and again, it's a credit to you, that the last count we had, and people are still coming in, was over 225. So we have more than the quorum that we needed. Please turn your cell phones off, any pagers off, unless obviously you're emergency personnel. The non-voting section, I can say this just as I was in the community center, is the bleacher section to my right. A little farther than usual, but there are some people there and we welcome them. But that's where the non-voting section is. To be inside the fence, you've got to have one of these. So hopefully everyone's registered and they've got their voter card. Our rules of procedure, if you haven't been here before, just very quickly. I read each article except some of the longer ones that I'll give you a heads up on that I'm not going to read ahead of time. After I've read the article in, I turn to the chairman or some member of the Finance Committee for the main motion. if they have a positive motion. If the Finance Committee does not have a positive motion, then I will look out to the floor, to the petitioner or someone else to see whether the meeting wants to make a positive motion. If they don't, then by our rules, the Finance Committee is obligated to make a motion for indefinite postponement, and we act on the article accordingly. And that'll be the process that I'll follow for each article. Some of the articles that I will not read and customarily don't read are in their entirety are obviously the whole budget. It's in your warrant in the back, and we'll be voting on the appendix. The capital plan, which is Article 6. The zoning bylaws that are, some of them are quite lengthy. I'm not going to read those in their entirety. So there's a certain amount of assuming that you've had your warrant, you've looked at it, and you've had an opportunity to read through it. So any of those longer articles I will not be reading in their entirety. So at this point, I'd like to recognize the town clerk for the return of the warrant. Mrs. Doucette.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Well, okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Harwich Annual Town Meeting, September 26, 2020, Barnstable County. To either of the constables of Town of Harwich in said county, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of town qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet at the Monomoy Regional High School Stadium Field, 75 Oak Street in said town on Saturday, September 26, 2020 at 10 a.m., then and there to act on the following articles. Hereof fail not to make return of this warrant with your doings thereon at the time and the place of said meeting, given under our hands this 31st day of August 2020, signed Larry G. Ballantyne, Chairman, Stephen P. Ford, Vice Chair, Michael D. McCaskill, Clerk, Donald F. Howell, Edward J. McManus, Board of Selectmen, signed David Robinson, Constable. September 9th, 2020, by virtue of this warrant, I have this day notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Harwich qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet at the Monomoy Regional High School Stadium Field, 75 Oak Street in said town on Saturday, the 26th day of September 2020. At the time and the place for the purpose herein named by posting up attested copies thereon in the 4 post office buildings and in the town hall in the town of Harwich, which covers all 4 precincts at least 14 days before the time of said meeting as within directed, and causing an attested copy thereof to be published in the Cape Cod Chronicle, published in Barnstable County, and having its circulation in the town of Harwich. Signed, David Robinson, Constable.
Thank you, Mrs. Doucette. Article 1, to choose various town officers and committees. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
So moved and seconded that Article 1 be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. At this time, the moderator reserves the right to make appointments at a later time. Article 2, to hear reports of all town officers and committees for the year 2019. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded Article 2 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. At this point, I will recognize Mr. DaCosta for the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This will not take long. I just wanted to give you some of the voters, some of the numbers as they compared to previous years. The explanation that goes with Article number 4, which begins on page 8 of your warrant, will give you a good summary of the events leading to today. The Board of Selectmen have prepared 46 articles, which total just over $76 million. This compared to last year's 69 articles, totaling $84 million. And the year before, 69 articles, totaling $104 million. So we're at $76 million. Contained in this warrant are project requests from the 7-year capital plan, which are roughly half the amount of last year's requests, and there are no Proposition 2.5 overrides to to follow this warrant. There are 5 operating budgets in this warrant, Articles 5 through 9. The smallest operating budget is the wastewater sewer budget, which grew from $225,000 last year to $272,932 this year. This budget will continue to grow as more construction on the sewer system is completed. In future years, this budget will be combined with the water department budget, as it is now one department. The water department budget is down just over $40,000 from last year. Due to a drop in enrollment by Harwich students at the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School, assessment is down for the town of Harwich by $594,000. The Monomoy Regional School District budget assessment has increased by $176,631. Although the town department budgets have increased along with state, county, and Cape Cod Commission assessments, the total town budget is down over $500,000 from last year, mostly due to retired debt. The total cost for all 5 operating budgets combined is $68,957,862, which is down from last year's request by almost $1 million, $980,237. So we've taken the time to reduce this as much as we could. Before I step down, I just want to thank the Board of Selectmen for putting together this warrant and for all the work they've done, and the town administrator, and our director of finance, and just all your public safety people and our health director that have made this all possible. I also want to thank longtime member Jack Brown, who is here today with us. Jack was chairman of the committee up until March and had to step down for some health reasons, and we wish him all the speedy recovery. Also, we have Angelo Lamontia from our group that could not make it today. He's home recovering, and we hope a speedy recovery for him. This is his first annual town meeting he has missed in many years. I want to thank Jack, Angelo, and the members of the Finance Committee for their efforts to bring you our recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Article 3. See if the town will vote to vote the salaries of the elected officials of the town for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2020, and ending June 30th, 2021 as follows, and to act thereon. Selectmen $2,400 each, moderator $1,000, water and sewer commissioners $1,000 each, library trustees $1,000 each, and town clerk $103,503. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant. Selectmen 5, $2,400 each, moderator 1, $1,000, water and wastewater commission 3, $1,000 each, library trustees 7, $1,000 each, and the town clerk $103,503.
The motion's been made and seconded. It's to adopt the article as printed in the warrant with the same amounts. There's no changes. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 4. See if the town will vote to transfer from available funds such sums of money needed to fund budget shortfalls caused by the reduced estimated receipts caused by the COVID-19 enforced government shutdown, reducing town charges for fiscal year 2021 and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 4 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 5. This is the town operating budget, and as I indicated, this is Appendix A. I'm sorry? I've been reminded by our town attorney, Mr. Giorgio, that Article 4 needed a 2/3 majority to pass. I declared it a simple majority. So I'm going to go back and ask for the vote on Article 4 again. It's the article we were just on. The motion was to accept and adopt as printed. All those in favor of Article 4 so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. I rule that it got the necessary 2/3 majority. There is a statute and a bylaw that allows the moderator to call a 2/3 vote, and I do that. Motion carries. Article 5, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray town charges for fiscal year 2021 and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
All right, this is a long one. I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $39,035,455 be appropriated for the purposes listed in Appendix A under the column entitled Town Meeting Budget FY 2021 with the following adjustments. So if you want to turn to that, you can go through the adjustments. Reduce line 140 debt service by $104,619 for a new total of $4,617,408. And reduce line 117 library salary and wages by $14,475 for a new line total of $730,885. And a new program total under line 119 of $1,005,705. And increase line 29 contracts by $14,475 for a new program total under line 30 of $571,502. And further, that the sum of $36,246,159 be raised and appropriated, and that the following amounts be transferred as follows. $166,779 from the Betterment and Septic Funds, $210,107 from the PEG Access Cable Related Fund, $341,750 from the Community Preservation Acts Funds, $13,855 from the FEMA Fund, $230,000 from free cash, $108,200 from the Golf Infrastructure Fund, $100,000 from the Golf Improvement Funds, $200,000 from overlay surplus, $100,000 from the Highway, Waterways, and Mooring Funds, $12,000 from the Town Clerk State Aid Fund, and $2,144 from the County Dog Fund. And further, that the sum of $730,290 be raised and appropriated in the general fund operating budget and allocated to the Water Enterprise Fund for the purposes of funding the fiscal year 2021 operating budget.
Do I hear a second? All right, the motion's been made and seconded under Article 5, which is the town operating budget. Those revisions to the budget are the revisions to Appendix A in your warrant booklet on pages 46, 47, and sequel, if you were following along. Our town charter requires the Board of Selectmen to present the budget to the town meeting, so I'll recognize the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ballantyne.
Thank you, Michael. It's a further than normal walk to get to the microphone. Thank you for, excuse me for wearing my cap when you have as much hair as I do. If I don't wear a cap, it'll hurt to comb my hair the next morning. Thank you for attending this delayed town meeting and doing so in an unfamiliar location and format. I also, as Michael has said, especially want to thank those involved with making this meeting possible with the coordinated effort of Harwich town staff and the Monomoy school staff. When we left the 2019 town meeting, with a clear message that financial concerns were of utmost importance. Town expenses and corresponding taxes had increased due to recently completed and ongoing capital projects and greater than expected operational expenses. In acknowledging these concerns, it is important that we note Harwich's financial house is in good order, as evidenced by Standard & Poor's upgrading of the town's credit rating to AAA based on its evaluation of the town's very strong economy, strong management, financial positions, practices, and relatively low debt. What a year. Who would have thought we would begin our fiscal year with a tornado that did a lot of damage to certainly Harwich Center, where I live in East Harwich and around, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic. With the advent of the COVID-19, the budget concerns we started the year with became less relevant. Developing, informing, implementing safety procedures in line with the governor's guidelines took precedent over usual town operations. Safety requirements meant we closed town facilities, public meetings, and limited many town services. After these initial steps, we immediately moved to do what we could to provide the needed services to our community. Our Board of Selectmen's meetings continued by using video conferencing, and which I think we've learned as we go forward to make them better each meeting. Regulatory committees also moved to use video conferencing as much as possible to act on various applications. DPW reopened the landfill very quickly with single stream operation. The golf course and town beaches were open as soon as possible. I know I got many emails informing me that golf was critical to life itself, so we are happy that those were open. Town staff employed computer technology to do as much work as possible from home. Of course, flu restrictions greatly affected our business community as well, as many were shut down or had severely limited services. By always keeping safety as a top priority, we have worked with the business community to offer any support we can. This support ranged from Board of Health and Health Director Megan Eldridge working within state guidelines to reopen businesses, training on policy procedures, and providing testing when advantageous. The Board of Selectmen, in accordance with new regulatory edicts, worked with restaurants for outdoor seating. We receive weekly updates from the business community to track successes and concerns. Megan and Joe Powers, who we thank for this meeting and all this work he's done, but they work tirelessly on safety issues, communication with staff and our community. Sometimes a thankless job as the guidelines seem to change almost daily. Our sincere thanks to town staff and volunteers for all they have done during this trying time, as everyone stepped up to continue to provide necessary services to town residents. We have also learned there is no uniformly accepted definition of risk. In this regard, we have and continue to listen to all residents' concerns and act when appropriate. Success, and I'm preaching to the choir, but success depends on respectful communication and understanding each other's perspective. Preparation of this year's operational budget was particularly challenging as both COVID-19 and revenue projections changed almost daily. Early assumptions were that revenues would be significantly reduced. Based on this, we instituted a hiring freeze, reviewed upcoming potential salary increases, and capital items which could be delayed. A top priority we had as selectmen was to protect personnel, not only to continue to provide town services, but to be in the position to become fully operational when safety procedures allowed. Initial budget estimates indicated a significant shortfall in fiscal year 2020 and a very scary deficit moving into this year. Receipt of a little over $1 million from the state to help pay for tornado damages, and another $1 million promised from the CARES Act turned the fiscal year 2020 surplus into a surplus. Although these are both one-time payments and difficult to consider in the future, the surplus does add to our this year's free cash, which we have traditionally used to help pay for capital items. Local receipts picked up during the last half of the summer, and although still depressed, exceeded our initial assumptions with the latest information that this year's budget estimates is a 12% reduction over last year. Considering overall all sources of revenue, we project a 2% overall reduction. Through the somewhat harsh steps that I mentioned before, we managed to reduce our budget expenses to only to 0.3% less than last year. Overall, the current budget shows a $574,000 deficit. Although we continue to explore additional expense reductions to decrease this deficit, Article 4, which you just approved, allows us to use part of the stabilization fund to balance the budget. This fund is obviously very important in that it helps us maintain our AAA rating, but it also provides emergency funds. We currently have $4.5 million in the stabilization fund. I think we all agreed, and you just confirmed this, that this is the pandemic is a true emergency. I want to offer a special thanks to Finance Director Carol Capula, who continually responded to our request for the latest financial assumptions and for tracking state requirements. A very difficult position at best, as the assumptions were, as I mentioned before, always changing. Although moving forward with the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan remains a top priority, we have delayed further town action until next year's spring town meeting. This delay was felt necessary to manage the time at this town meeting, and more importantly, to pause to reevaluate the plan as additional water data, which we use as a surrogate for potential sewer flows, and may alter our wastewater plans as they become more available. Now is also the time to carefully determine the best ways to take advantage of a potential regional sewer plant with Dennis and Yarmouth. As reported in local news, the Conservation Law Foundation has increased its pressure on the Environmental Protection Agency, our own state's Department of Environmental Protection, and local entities to move our wastewater issues. This is a dynamic plan in which we continue efforts to reduce costs as we can, and are also always considering new technologies. As always, and again you've shown this today, we encourage participation as much as possible. I too wish to recognize Jack Brown for all he's done in the Finance Committee and actually other committees he's worked with on town. And also to thank Dana DeCosta for stepping up, which actually turned out to be some of the last minute aid to help Finance Committee and chair that committee. I obviously too, I get the privilege of reporting for the Board of Selectmen, but I want to thank them for working tirelessly on behalf of the town. My hat's off to my fellow selectmen. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ballantyne. So we're on Article 5. We have a motion to adopt the budget with the changes as read by Mr. DeCosta. Is any debate? Mr. Thompson, take him that? Right here.
No, I want to clean.
Pardon?
I want to clean this one.
Okay. I think they're going to, Alan, do you want to come use this or, okay. All right, I guess it's coming to you. And it's cleaned.
My question is on Article 5 is that the amount of money that's in being proposed further, that $730,290 be raised and appropriated in the general fund operating budget and allocated to the water enterprise fund. Well, I'm just trying to understand, is the $730,290 of indirect costs in the water enterprise fund? And that's money that's usually transferred from earned income at the water department to the general government for their support in accounting, treasury, and those kinds of services to the water enterprise fund. So if it's just a language issue there, or you're actually adding that $730,290 to the tax rate. So if you could help me out on that one, I'd appreciate it.
Somebody want to respond to Mr. Thompson's question? Carol?
Hi, good morning. You are correct. The amount is being raised in the general fund to support the indirect costs of the water enterprise fund. but then we transfer in a revenue source from Water Enterprise Fund, but that's a revenue source. So we have to, you can't hear?
Can you pull it down? There, okay.
Okay, I'll start over. You are correct, Mr. Thompson, that the amount represents indirect costs for the Water Enterprise Fund. It's appropriated in the general fund, and then there's a revenue source that comes in from the Water Enterprise Fund to offset that, so that's not being raised in taxes.
Mr. Thompson is nodding satisfaction and relief, I think. Further debate on the motion under the budget? Mr. DaCosta? Oh, okay. Just doing some wiping. Yes, this gentleman in the middle. I think there's a mic coming to you. If you'd introduce yourself, please.
Yep, I will. Gary Conroy, 235 Bay Road. I think as we navigate today, first, I do think the town's done a nice job of proposing a conservative budget. However, I was opposed to using the stabilization fund to fund this year's spending. I think we should live within the revenue stream that we project. Also, I think it's important to know that the budget has increased 24% since 2018. Harwich still has one of the highest tax rates on Cape Cod, and certainly is above all of our surrounding towns. We have increased our employment in the operating budget by about 30 full-time equivalents over the last decade. The population in Harwich has not grown at all over the last decade. Lastly, we have huge capital challenges. The sewer build-out is projected to be $300 million. And that's like building a new high school, here we are today, every 5 or 6 years. So as we navigate the day and look at the spending and where we're going as a town, I think it's very important to have a historical perspective and then also understand that we have huge financial pressure, mainly driven by, I'll call it, increased employment in the town and very big capital challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. Just so everybody's clear, the stabilization transfer that he said he objected to, that was in Article 4, so that's not in this motion. That's been done. Any further debate on the motion on the budget? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the budget motion as read by Mr. DaCosta, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 6. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to pay for the Monomoy Regional School District assessment for fiscal year 2021 and to act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $26,820,046 be appropriated for this purpose of funding the town's of Harwich's assessment for the FY 2021 annual operation of the Monomoy School District, and that the sum of $26,696,103 be raised and appropriated, and further that the sum of $123,943 be transferred from free cash for capital items.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second? And seconded. Again, the number is $26,820,046 is the total. $26,696,103 to be raised and appropriated, and $123,943 to be transferred from free cash. Is there any debate on the school budget? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. No. It is a vote. Article 7. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money as may be required to pay for the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District assessment for fiscal year 2021 and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $1,737,789 be raised and appropriated to fund the annual operation of the Regional Technical High School.
Motion been made and seconded under Article 7. The total is $1,737,789. It's to be raised and appropriated to fund the annual operation. Any debate on Article 7? Hearing none, I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 8. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray the Water Department operating budget for fiscal year 2021 and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $4,291,075 be transferred, be raised and appropriated from Water Department receipts to operate the Water Enterprise Fund for this purpose. Salaries, $1,321,050. Expenses, $1,468,390. Debt, $721,345. Indirect costs, $730,290. OPEB out of the post-employment benefits, $50,000. And further to transfer the sum of $50,000 from the Water Department budget to other post-employment benefits trust fund created under Article 8 of the May 6, 2014 special town meeting.
Motions are made and seconded under Article 8. That total number again was $4,291,075 to be raised and appropriated with the various categories broken out as read by Mr. DeCosta. Is there any debate on the Water Department budget? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 9. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow such sums of money as may be required to defray the wastewater sewer department operating budget for fiscal 2021 and act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $100,000 be raised and appropriated, $100,000 be transferred from free cash, and $72,932 be transferred from the Sewer Enterprise Fund retained earnings for this purpose. Salaries, $80,489. Expenses, $192,443.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 9. That total again is $271,913. And it's broken into salaries, $80,489, and expenses, $192,443. Any debate on the wastewater sewer budget? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 10. See if the town will vote to adopt the capital plan, and that's printed in your warrant, for the ensuing 7-year period as adopted last year by the town meeting, with new fiscal year 2027 as proposed by the Board of Selectmen and set forth below or as amended by the vote of town meeting and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
All right, the motion under Article 10 is accept and adopt as printed. Is there any debate on the capital plan? Hearing none, I'm going to put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 11. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money to fund the items in the table below included in the 2021 capital plan and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $27,986 be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Taser replacement, $14,910. Town share air packs, $13,076.
All right, motion's been made under Article 11, and this is an article that funds the items in the capital plan under $50,000. The total of the motion is $27,986. It's to be transferred from free cash. and to fund tasers and share air packs. Any debate on the motion under Article 11? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 12. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money as may be required to defray costs related to the facility and grounds maintenance and repair included in the FY 2020 capital plan.
Hello, John Chory, Finance Committee.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chory, I didn't see you out of the corner of my eye. I was just about to call you Mr. DaCosta.
We look the same, you know. Article 12, Fund Facility Maintenance and Repair. I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $55,000 be transferred from free cash for the purpose of repairing scale deck at the transfer station.
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded under Article 12. It's accept and adopt. The sum is $55,000. It's to be transferred from free cash to repair the scale at the transfer station. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 13, Fire Department, replace Fire Department ambulance. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sufficient sum of money as may be required to purchase or lease and equip one ambulance for the fire department and act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $378,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose, for the purpose of purchasing or leasing and equipping an ambulance for the fire department.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 13. The sum is $378,000. It's to be transferred from free cash for the purpose of purchasing, leasing, and equipping an ambulance. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 13, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 14, lease purchase agreement. See if the town will vote to enter into various lease purchase financing agreements for town equipment, including in the operating budget for FY 2021. Said leases may be for a short term, not to exceed the useful life of the equipment as determined by the Board of Selectmen. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 14 be accepted and adopted. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 15. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds or borrow such sums of money that may be required to fund the management and upgrade of the equipment at the TV studio located at Monomoy Regional High School and to act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $119,307.50 be transferred from Public Education and Government Fund for the purpose of funding the management and upgrade of equipment for the TV studio located at Monomoy Regional High School.
All right, the motion under Article 15 is accept and adopt. The sum is $119,307.50, and it's proposed to be transferred from the PEG fund for the purpose of upgrading the equipment at the TV studio. Did you have a comment, Mr. Chory?
No.
No. Any debate on the motion under Article 15? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 16, Mr. Chory, this is person-equipped vehicles for DPW. See if the town will vote raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds and or borrow sufficient sum of money as may be required, purchase and equip the following vehicles, and to further authorize the trade-in or sale of the old vehicles towards the purchase price where the Board of Selectmen find the vehicles cannot be utilized elsewhere in town. Mr. Chory.
I move this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $215,000 be transferred from free cash for the purpose of purchasing a catch basin cleaner for the Department of Public Works.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded under Article 16. It's accept and adopt. The sum is $215,000. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash, and it's for purchasing a catch basin cleaner your warrant referred to a sweeper, but it's really a catch basin cleaner, and that's why we've changed the motion. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 17, Road Maintenance Program. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds and/or borrow the sum of $350,000 to fund the road maintenance program as requested in the capital plan for FY 2020 and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
I move that the article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $350,000 be transferred from free cash for the purpose of funding the road maintenance program. Second.
All right, the motion under Article 17 has been made and seconded. The sum is $350,000 is to be transferred from free cash, and that's to fund the annual road maintenance program. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 18, Cemetery Memorial Tree Replacement. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 for the memorial tree replacement, a program to plant at any of the town-owned cemeteries in Harwich and to act fully thereon. Mr. Chori.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $20,000 be transferred from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Trust Fund for the purpose of funding the memorial tree replacement program. Second.
All right, the motion is made and seconded under Article 18. The proposal is $20,000 to be transferred from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Trust Fund for this purpose. Any debate? Hearing none, I'll put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, excuse me, under Article 18, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 19. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds or borrow such sums of money that may be required to purchase and install a new playback server, video bulletin server, and streaming service at Channel 18 Control Room, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $58,985 be transferred from the Public Education and Government Fund for the purpose of funding equipment for the Channel 18 Control Room.
Do I hear a second? Second. All right. Motion's made and seconded under Article 19. It's accept and adopt. The sum is $58,985, and it's proposed to be transferred from the PEG Fund for this purpose. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 19, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 20. Don B. Griffin Room hearing room improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds or borrow such sums of money that may be required to purchase and install an improved audio system, projection equipment, video production software and components, furniture, and network peripherals for the Don B. Griffin Room at the Harwich Town Hall. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $97,000 be transferred from the Public Education and Government Fund for the purpose of funding equipment in the Don B. Griffin Room at Town Hall.
So the motion under Article 20 has been made, it's seconded, the sum is $97,000, and again, that's proposed to be transferred from the PEG Fund. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 20, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 21, Harbor Master Department supplemental funding for Round Cove Boat Ramp. To see if the town will vote to transfer a sufficient sum of money from the Harbor Mooring Receipts Reserved for Appropriation Fund to complete the reconstruction of the Round Cove Boat Ramp and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and further that the sum of $106,357 be transferred from the Harbor Mooring Receipts Reserve Fund for the purpose of supplementing funds transferred at the 2017 annual town meeting to reconstruct the Round Cove Boat Ramp.
Motion's been made and seconded under Article 21. The sum's $106,357, and it's proposed to be transferred from the Harbor Mooring Receipts Reserve Fund. Any debate? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion under Article 21, so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 22, zoning bylaw amendment. As I indicated, I will not read this in its entirety. It's in your warrant. See if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Harwich zoning bylaw as it relates to multifamily. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Okay, the motion under Article 22 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. I'm going to go to the chair of the planning board, if he's here, Mr. Duncan Berry. If somebody can
Right
get
here.
him. Great. Okay, Duncan. So Duncan will first give us the planning board report before I open up for debate.
The planning board held a duly posted and noticed public hearing on the proposed multifamily zoning amendment on September 22nd of this year. There were people in attendance on the meeting. However, there was no question or comments raised by the public, and no one from the public spoke either in favor or against this proposed zoning amendment. Having received no questions or comments, the board closed the public hearing, and the planning board voted unanimously 7-0 to approve the proposed amendment for multifamily and recommend it to the town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. That's the report of the planning board. We'll now open the article up for debate. Mr. Berry, did you have further comments, or?
Not at this time.
Okay. Does anyone wish to be heard on the motion to adopt the multifamily zoning amendment? Yes, ma'am, over here, if we can get her a microphone. Looks like one's coming to you. If you could identify yourself. You can stay right where you are. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Clara McClarty. I live in East Harwich, Pleasant Bay Road. I am not certain if I understand this correctly, but I did read all of the planning board material ahead of time and had a very difficult time understanding exactly what the practical changes, the outcomes would be of these changes. And I live in East Harwich, and many residents are concerned about rumors of a Chris Wise 40B project with an enormous amount of multifamily housing and a small portion of affordable housing. And that's been rumored. And I think that this may be to help facilitate the possibility of that project. And I don't think that many people in the area understood or clearly had a chance to express their objections. I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding a connection between this zoning change and that project. And other projects that, because of the proposed sewering, there is likely to be an enormous increase in development in East Harwich. And I'm concerned about the ecological effects. I know that we've had Title V limitations because the nitrogen and phosphorus pollution problems have been measured and documented so well and for so long that they resulted in actual restrictions. But it takes scientists quite a long time to prove the negative effects before they actually document them enough to have restrictions that actually stop harmful construction. And I'm afraid that once we have this sewer in place, we will have enormous amounts of ecologically damaging construction in East Harwich that are already planned, although it's not totally out in the open because it's hard to find out exactly what is planned. But I firmly oppose it, and I think that many other people in East Harwich might oppose it also. And I'd like it to be explained clearly how this connects to those 40B projects that we may soon be vulnerable to. And I also wish to just say that my idea of a better way to deal with the affordability problems as well as the ecological problems would be people like Chris Wise and these other developers who are constantly building enormous trophy homes in East Harwich should be limited from doing that as long as we don't have the 10% affordable housing that the state requires us to have. So if we limit the building of homes that are absolutely, undoubtedly not affordable, because we are in a deficit of affordability, we could prevent the case where we take all this desirable land, build it up into enormous McMansions, and then say, oh, we need to cram in some affordable clustered units on ecologically delicate areas because we now need affordable housing because we need more workers to support our community. Let's stop overbuilding the wrong end of our community. Our community already has as much tourism and retirement housing as we can manage practically. So I think that there's a connection here, but perhaps they could explain it more. Thank you.
So, Mr. Berry, do you want to respond to I heard one question there, and that is there a nexus between the article that's before the voters currently and any 40B projects that might be out there or are coming?
There's no connection at all.
Okay. Yes, sir.
On the amendment,
Could you just identify yourself?
sorry, Sandy McClarty, East Harwich.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the amendment on page 21. Item 3 says all multifamily dwellings must be connected to municipal water systems. It's my understanding the municipal water system, okay, I'm mixing that up with the sewer system. This is just potable water, or is this sewer, is this part of the sewer project? I guess that's my question.
So before I maybe turn that over to Mr. Berry to see if he can respond, again, which section were you referring to?
It's page 21 of the amendment. Q3,
Page 21, Q3.
multifamily special permit.
Okay. And so your question is, does that refer to sewer or water? Is that correct?
Yeah, because I know they're going to be merged soon.
All right.
And
So,
I'm sorry, and the follow-up on the next page, I'll get this over with. I believe number 5, place, talks about the number of multifamily dwelling units shall be determined by the ability to place an adequately sized septic system for the number of bedrooms, and so forth. Again, my concern is always with the sewer project, and once that's in place, are we still bound by the supposed Title V, even though they won't be Title V going forward in many areas in Harwich? It seems like, are we still pinning it to that spacing?
okay, so I think your question, at least the last one that I've heard, is that in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, where there's a reference to density, number of bedrooms, that is pegged to Title V, and later the area will be serviced by sewer, what does the standard become? Is that kind of what you're... Mr. Berry, can you address that question?
Mr. Moderator, may I suggest that you request the town planner to address that particular question?
I'd be happy to put the question to Charlene if she's here, and I see somebody waving outside the fence.
Could you take her the microphone? That would be great, thank you.
And I think she's outside the fence because she's probably from that foreign country of Chatham. She is our town planner. We have a provision in our bylaws that a non-resident can address the meeting. Any objection to our town planner addressing the meeting? Hearing none, Charlene, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am Charlene Greenheld, your town planner, at least until November 27th. With regard to the questions that have been asked, within the sewer regulations that have been established for East Harwich for the connection with Chatham, it is restricted to a zero growth, meaning that if you have a lot that has 4,000 or 40,000 square feet, you get 4 bedrooms. That remains the same under this bylaw for multifamily. Under this bylaw, multifamily would have to go by any regulations that the Board of Health or any sewer regulations that are imposed. I do want to say under a 40B project, it has been determined that a 40B project is not regulated by the local bylaws having to do with the local sewer and possibly even the 10,000 square feet per bedroom. So the 40B is much less restrictive. Under this zoning bylaw, it would still have to comply with, if you're in a water recharge area, you would have to comply with the 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. So even if you're hooked into sewer, you're still restricted to 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. Additionally, the properties that are being created as multifamily would have to have town water. You would not be able to have your own well. You would have to be tied into town water. Too many papers here. Right now, just to give a couple things, multifamily would be allowable in all zoning districts by special permit and site plan review. It is not allowable in the CH2, which is the East Harwich commercial area, or in industrial zoning districts. A minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet is required for vacant lots. For lawfully pre-existing structures or uses converting to multifamily residence, the existing lot size shall be allowable. The setbacks have basically remained the same, 25 feet from the front and side and rear lot lines. However, for existing buildings, of which there may be a few, we would allow that the front setback would be determined at the time of site plan review. The height of the buildings could be a maximum of 40 feet or 3.5 stories, and currently the bylaw allows for 50 feet, so that is being reduced. And there is the approval for up to 80% site coverage. The development, as I said, must be connected with town water. The multifamily units shall be determined by the ability to place the adequately sized septic system for the number of bedrooms and required parking per the parking schedule. I'm happy to answer any other questions or concerns that folks may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Mr. Thompson, there's a microphone coming to you, Mr. Thompson, if you stay where you are.
Does this project under 40B negate any rules to the drinking water resource protection districts? I have a concern that once we start opening up construction into resource protection for drinking water wells, that this kind of sets the pattern. So I definitely would be opposed to seeing any intrusion into the resource protection district. So if I'd like to know if 40B negates that issue too, it would be a shame, as we've spent so much and given so much time to having safe well fields. So if I could get a reply.
So, Mr. Thompson, first of all, this Article 22, we're not voting on a 40B project. All right? This has nothing to do with Chapter 40B. Chapter 40B is a separate statute in which you can bring a request for a comprehensive permit to the town, and that is considered by the Board of Appeals. And you do have a right to try and waive local regulations and balance the need for affordable housing. But that's 40B projects. That's not what this article is all about. That was mentioned in the debate, but that's not what's before you. I think your question, however, is, does this zoning amendment, Article 22, allow for greater density in the groundwater protection drinking water districts? Is that your question? Okay. If Charlene's still over the fence, maybe she could respond to that.
Any development other than a 40B in a water recharge district would have to comply with all water recharge district requirements under the zoning bylaw, as well as any Board of Health requirements. So again, No more than 10,000, or no more than one bedroom per 10,000 square feet
Yeah.
would be allowable.
So this article, Mr. Thompson, based on what she's just told you, does not in any way change the density in the water resource, drinking water resource districts. Further debate? I see, okay. Yes, I see a hand up over here.
Hi, Judith Underwood, Harwich Center. I'm one of your water commissioners, and I'm also on the Affordable Housing Trust. If I could bother Charlene one more time, if you could just give a little bit of context of why this is actually being voted on today in terms of wanting to spread more affordable housing throughout the town of Harwich. Can you speak to the current zoning for multifamily housing? Thank you.
Charlene, did you hear that question?
I did, Mr.
Okay.
Moderator,
All right.
thank you.
You're recognized.
The Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board met in 2019 to discuss the need for the creation of workforce housing and the need for rental properties. This bylaw is a culmination of efforts to modernize a practical zoning bylaw which promotes for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. The existing bylaw presents numerous language conflicts. This amendment will streamline the zoning bylaw and allow for multifamily developments and additional zoning districts. And at the same time, it would require a special permit from the Planning Board. This bylaw would also help to assist with the creation of multifamily dwellings with specific requirements and criteria to provide for safe housing and residents. Currently within the MRL and MRL1 zoning districts, you need either 8 acres or 10 acres, but no more than 25 acres. And the number of bedrooms per acre is more restrictive than what is currently under the Title V requirements. It was felt that these the existing bylaws were overly restrictive, really made no sense, probably at the time that they were created, which I'm guessing was back in the 80s. There was probably a reason why they did that. I haven't been able to figure that one out. So what this would allow is for somebody, if they wanted to do a multifamily development, you know, and staff is always happy to work with folks to figure out what can and can't happen or what might be desirable in a neighborhood. You know, we're always there to work, even when I'm gone. Whoever the new town planner is, you know, that person will also help work with potential applicants to come up with a development that is suitable for a site, suitable for a neighborhood, and something that the planning board could endorse through the special permit process. I think it's important to point out that this is a special permit process, which means it's not a gimme. You have to demonstrate that this is an appropriate use for the site, for the location, etc.
Thank you, Charlene. Further debate, we're on Article 22, and the motion is to accept and adopt the bylaw as printed. Mr. Howell, Don Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I guess I should start off by saying I get it. Zoning bylaws are really difficult to get your head wrapped around. And you're hearing all sorts of things about state statutes. I can't emphasize enough, as the moderator said before, this has absolutely nothing to do with 40B or 40B projects. Anyone who had a 40B project before this could still pursue it. Anyone who had one after this passes could still pursue it. It's a different statute entirely. This is 40A under the state statute. Before I get too involved with what the state allows and doesn't allow, this is an orderly process. We did ask as a board for the planning board to consider. Some of our zoning bylaws have gotten so out of whack through the years that if you wanted to have an in-law apartment, you had to share a wall or you couldn't do it. Mr. Thompson has brought up the sewage flows. This doesn't affect that. It really boils down to, do we want to have rental housing in some areas or do we not want to have it? But this is really something that has nothing to do with 40B, and it's going to put every application in front of the planning board so it's very transparent. It's something I really urge you to support.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 22? Yes, sir. or ma'am, I'm sorry. I can't tell from this distance. The microphone is coming to you. Is that Linda? I couldn't tell from this distance, I'm sorry.
Hi, thank you. And when I was on the Board of Selectmen, I kept getting named as Mr. Chair, so I understand. My question is, in this addenda that was given out to us with all of the votes and the motions, this is the second article where there has not been a recommendation by the Finance Committee. One was Article 6, which was the Monomoy Regional School District budget. There was no, and the information in here says an update will be provided at town meeting. So I'd like to know how the Finance Committee voted Thursday on this article. Thank you.
Yeah, Linda, I'm sorry, it's in the handout today that had the motions and stuff. But
It does, but
yeah.
it doesn't have a Finance Committee
Okay.
recommendation.
I'll let Mr. DeCosta tell you that. Mr. DeCosta.
We waited until Thursday night, this past Thursday, to vote that because we hadn't heard from the planning board yet whether they were going to recommend it to town meeting. Once we heard it and reviewed that portion of it, we voted unanimously 7-0 to support it. One member was missing.
Any further debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. This is a zoning bylaw amendment, so it requires a 2/3 majority. Oh, I'm sorry, in the back, okay. I'll send somebody down there with a microphone. My apologies.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Heffernan, and I live by Cape Cod Tech. Oh, no, you can. Okay, and there's 20 acres of land that abut my property, and it's miscellaneous land that just was claimed, I guess. So I'm concerned that all of the miscellaneous land is in the miscellaneous file. So no one knows who's going to purchase any of this land. And since this has been claimed, I'm concerned that what's happening in East Harwich is going to happen in my neighborhood as well. And I just don't see any benefit by taking any more land to build any more big projects. Unless, so the people that are out there that are claiming unclaimed land have more rights than we do because this land may not have any taxes that have been paid. So I know it's not referring to this article, but still in some way someone got a hold of that land in East Harwich and was able to get a building permit to build a massive structure. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's too late to stop this vote.
All right, so I'm not sure that that's really material to Article 22, but we heard your comments. Any further debate on Article 22? To my right? Somebody's coming behind you, ma'am.
My name is Frances Rich, and I live in Harwichport. And a couple years ago, we approved a zoning change to allow second small dwellings or in-law apartments, separate buildings, to help with the affordable housing issue that we have. And I'm just wondering how many people in the last couple of years have come forward and utilized that zoning change that we already have. I'm not sure if we need this zoning change today or not.
Anybody want to respond to that? That's the accessory dwelling unit bylaw. Charlene, is your hand up? Okay. I'm going to recognize the town planner. What's the experience been with ADUs since we adopted that bylaw?
And that was only last year, that was May of 19. There are between 8 and 10 new accessory apartments that have been created under that bylaw.
Thank you. Any further debate? Somebody new? Anybody new? Okay, if there's nobody new, then I'll go back because you can speak twice on an article. I think young lady in the straw hat there. Oh, I'm sorry. And then I'll get to you, Judith. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, with the straw hat. You didn't hear the second part.
I was just going to try to get a little more clarity. Don mentioned sharing a wall as one of the material differences between the zoning we already have and the zoning that this proposes. I just wanted to have a practical vision of what you couldn't build before this and you can build after this. The differences in acreage you referred to, I had a hard time envisioning. I'm concerned about overbuilding, so that's what I'd like to hear details on.
Charlene, just a question. In the areas where this is permitted, what is the change? What dimensional regulations are changing?
Just to clarify, Mr. Moderator, what Mr. Howell was referring to was the accessory apartment bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, it was amended to allow it within the same structure or an accessory structure. So that's something that already happened last year.
Okay.
For this zoning amendment, for example, we have had inquiries about a motel down on Route 28 that is having great difficulties in this climate, adjusting and being able to be run profitably. They have asked if they could change that to a multifamily year-round dwelling to create housing for, for workforce housing. It wouldn't be capital A affordable, meaning it wouldn't count toward 10%, but it would be workforce housing that is desperately needed in this community. So it would allow for those types of changes through the special permit process and through the site plan process.
All right.
And as far as acreage, currently in the MRL and MRL1 zoning districts, you need either 8 or 10 acres of land. In the RH, I think it's 2 and 3, you only need 40,000 square feet. This does propose to expand it to other zoning districts where there are existing motels, some of which people would like to be able to have the ability to convert. You've seen some of those converted already through the 40B process. Quite frankly, you don't even know that they're there. It's housing that would be available, again, for workforce folks, and create housing where people can live and work in their own community.
Thank you, Charlene. Judith Underwood was next.
Hi, I just want to ask you all to support this. This is another way of bringing affordable housing into our community for our teachers, for our firemen, for our police officers. It's very expensive, as you all know, and we need this kind of housing, and it spreads it out throughout the town. So please vote in support of this. It's a process that you don't automatically get it, as Charlene said. They will scrutinize it. It has to fit in the neighborhood. But it's really important for our growing community. Thank you.
Okay, any further debate on the motion under Article 22? Yes, I see one in the back. Back right side. Somebody could get a microphone there. They're coming to you. Coming right up, sir. If you identify yourself, please.
Dick Smith, Harwich Port. I just have a question regarding this article. does it have any implications for short-term versus long-term rentals? But short-term, I mean week to week.
Are we going back to Charlene again on that one? So the question, Charlene, is whether this article has any effect on short-term rentals week
This
to
is
week.
intended for year-round occupancy, not for week to week.
Any further debate? Okay, it looks like you're ready for a vote. Again, this is a motion to amend the zoning bylaw, excuse me, so it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. All those in favor of the motion as read, which is to accept and adopt, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. I rule that it got the necessary 2/3 majority. Article 23, see if the town will vote to amend the town zoning bylaw by establishing a new West Harwich Special District, Roman numeral 24 in the zoning bylaw. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
All right, the motion under Article 23 is accept and adopt as printed. I'll now recognize Mr. Barry, Chairman of the Planning Board, for the Planning Board report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board held a duly posted and noticed public hearing on the proposed West Harwich Special District zoning amendment on September 22nd, 2020. Prior to the public hearing, the Harwich Board of Health, Conservation Commission, and Board of Selectmen voted to support and endorse this amendment. Additionally, the Cape Cod Commission voted to confirm that this zoning amendment is consistent with the requirements established within the Barnstable County Ordinance 19-18, which created the West Harwich District of Critical Planning Concern, DCPC. One member of the public spoke in support of the West Harwich Special District, and there were no further comments or questions. After hearing from the public, the board closed the public hearing, and the Planning Board voted unanimously, 7-0, to approve the proposed amendment for the West Harwich Special District and recommend it to the town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. We'll now open debate on the motion under Article 23. Mr. Barry, do you have any further comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments on Article 23? Yes, I see a hand over there. Behind you. Behind you.
Hi, Susan Patterson from East Harwich. I'd just like to know, what does this special district allow? What? I wasn't aware of the public meeting, so I'd just like an overview of what it entails. What's at stake?
So I see that we're going back over the fence. Our town planner, Charlene Greenhalgh, can you just give a brief thumbnail sketch of what this is?
As Mr. Barry indicated, this is a bylaw that was culminated from the designation of the West Harwich Corridor as a district of critical planning concern, which is a provision under the Cape Cod Commission Act and ordinances. An ordinance was created on December 4th, and the town has 1 year to implement regulations which were already approved by the Cape Cod Commission, but do need approval by this town meeting and a 2/3 vote. There are a number of uses that are permitted. Unfortunately, I can't get to them right now, but what this does, it provides a statutory authority and purpose as well as an intent and applicability of the bylaw. It creates specific definitions for the terms historic structure and principal building facade. It provides for permitted uses for all properties and several permitted uses for historic structures. Currently, the underlying zoning in this area is Commercial Highway 1. There are a litany of uses that are allowable in that underlying zoning district that has been reduced to what would now be allowable within the special district. Single and two-family homes would be allowable, multifamily homes would be allowable, retail would be allowable, and but retail over 1,000 square feet would become a use special permit. Restaurants would be allowable Fast food would not be allowable, but restaurants would. Doesn't mean you can't have your favorite restaurant and do takeout like you're doing right now. It also provides for if a use is not specifically enumerated, it is therefore prohibited. And this bylaw also does not allow for use variances, which are allowable in all the other zoning districts. It does allow for pre-existing non-conforming uses. We have a gas station, for example, that would be able to continue and would be able to be modified if it ever needed to be. It also provides for streamline in the review process. If there is an addition or change up to 250 square feet, it would be done by the planning board's designee. Generally, it would be the town planner. If it's up to 1,000 square feet, it would be reviewed under the waiver provision of the site plan review, which is not a public hearing process. It is a public meeting process, and abutters would get notified of that type of meeting. And anything over 1,000 square feet would trigger a site plan review, which is a special permit, which would require a public hearing and notification to abutters. It also created the new zoning overlay map, and also created review standards, which were felt to be appropriate for this area, which is also known as Captain's Row and has at least 24 historic buildings that are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places.
Thank you, Charlene. Further debate, Mr. Howell, Selectman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's probably more important to understand what would happen if you didn't do this. As you drive through West Harwich heading towards Dennisport, there's a beautiful palette of history that you'll notice there. Some of them are somewhat worn down, admittedly, but currently, if you wanted to buy one of those properties and go through a demolition delay, eventually you could take that down and put a cinder block commercial building in there, and that's what you'd see. There's no control over that at the moment. Personally, I've been involved with the board in aggregating buying open space through the years. I've been involved with affordable housing, but I have to tell you, it's like trying to decide which one of your children you love the best. Our history is really important. If we cannot value history, I personally feel that a community that doesn't value its history has no heart. This whole area came to be before there was even zoning available. The Chases had property there. These are names from the history of Harwich. We are close to losing all that history. This is a way of holding on to it. The whole county apparatus is behind this for us. We are blessed by having the DCPC process available to us. No one else in the state has that available. Do yourself a favor, give the gift to Harwich of protecting West Harwich.
Any further debate? I see a hand up over here.
Hi, Joan McCurdy.
Oh, hi, Joan.
Hi, how are you? I have a problem. We have closer? I'm hearing it from here. So I'm sorry. I have a problem with all the idea that this should be a special place. I drive down the street. There are beautiful homes, just like every other street in town. Some are older, some are newer. But I don't think we should just blatantly say, okay, all these commercial buildings will be okay, but the new ones that are falling down, or the old houses that are falling down, they need to have somebody rehab them rather than build whatever they want when they pay their money to have the property. I think we're overstepping letting people do what they want. We have a planning board. We have all kinds of departments in control of that. And to say that they can't do the job without having another rule that says that only the specials in West Harwich are important doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Any further debate? Yes, gentleman here in the middle, or? If you'd identify yourself, please.
Sure, Jeff Schwartz, Division Street in West Harwich. I'm all for preserving the historic structures. The question I have is, creating a new zone, is that going to affect non-historic structures being able to have solar on their roof?
So the question is, does the adoption of this bylaw in any way affect the ability of someone to install solar on their property?
No.
The answer is no from the chairman of the planning board. Any further debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote on this one. Again, this is a zoning bylaw amendment, so it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. The motion on Article 23 is accept and adopt as printed. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 24. See if the town will vote to amend the Code of the Town of Harwich zoning bylaw by deleting the definition of essential services within Section 325-2 definitions and by deleting within 2513 Table 1, Paragraph 2, public and quasi-public uses. Item 3, essential services, facilities, and utilities. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Motion under Article 24 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. I'll recognize Mr. Berry for the Planning Board report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board held a duly posted and noticed public hearing on this proposed zoning amendment on August 11th of this year. There was no public input. However, the Zoning Board of Appeals had sent an email to the town planner in support of the amendment. Hearing no questions or comments from the public, the board closed the public hearing, and the Planning Board voted unanimously, 7-0 to 0, to approve the proposed zoning amendment and to recommend it to the town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Is there any debate on the motion under Article 24? I don't see any. Again, this is an amendment to the zoning bylaw, so it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 25. See if the town will vote to accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 33, Section 59, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 25 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Yes, Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Powers, Interim Town Administrator and voter from Precinct 4. I want to make a note of a correction in your explanation. The explanation that I wrote for the warrant incorrectly states the effects of this law. However, the good news is the correction actually reduces the town's liability. The statement regarding pay should be that the employee would be paid their regular base municipal salary less any military pay. So I want to make that correction for the record and urge your adoption. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Is there any further debate on the motion under Article 25? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 26. See if the town will vote to support the Harwich Board of Selectmen's request to the state legislature to pass a bill amending the hardship exemption as provided in Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 18, for the right to grant up to a $1,000 property tax exemption for taxpayers under the age of 60 as a local option for all cities and towns and or as a home rule petition for the town of Harwich and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 26 be accepted and adopted as printed. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take that back. I didn't see somebody way back, so hold off on that vote for a minute. They're bringing a mic to you. My apologies.
Thank you, Janelle Brown, Harwich Center. I have a couple questions. I looked this up on Mass General Laws, and it said something about military duty. So I just would like to have a little bit of clarification what this exactly is.
Somebody want to, Mr. Waystack, Board of Assessors? Question is, what is this all about? We've got a microphone hopefully coming to you, Richard.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, Richard Waystack, Chairman of the Board of Assessors. We have in this community a number of exemptions that we provide every year for our residents who are in need. Actually, we provide up to 259 exemptions in the past fiscal year. We have an exemption for those over the age of 60 who are facing infirmity or hardship economically. We have no such exemption, and there is no such exemption in Mass General Law for those under the age of 60. Every year when we look at creating the tax rate for the community, it comes up the difficulty some of our younger people are having. And now I'm one of those older people, so for people under the age of 60 who are having a difficult time in this community. In order for us to do this, it has to be voted on by the legislature. This is the first step. It will go to the House and then to the governor to see if we can have a home rule petition to be the first one in the Commonwealth to take care of our residents under the age of 60 who are having a difficult time paying their taxes.
Ms. Brown, anything further?
Yes. So currently this is a bill, and you're asking us as voters to support the Board of Selectmen in supporting this bill?
Correct. It is not yet a bill. The first step is to get town meeting to approve it. Once town meeting approves it, Representative Peake will file legislation for the town of Harwich. We would like to see it available to all cities and towns. However, if they don't do so, we would like it done as a local town option for the town of Harwich.
And would it be limited to 30 people per year?
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Waystack.
No, we anticipate it could be up to 30. It will not be capped. Right now, under the hardship exemption for those over the age of 60, there is no hardship. There are requirements, and it was posted, I believe, in the town report that there are requirements for those who would get it. What is the income for these people? What are their assets? As we do currently with the hardship exemption for those over the age of 60, would be done very similarly to that under 60.
Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further debate on the motion under Article 26, which is accept and adopt? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 27. See if the town will vote to adopt a lower interest rate from 8% yearly interest to 5% yearly interest on the deferred taxes for the purpose of real estate tax deferrals for qualifying persons age 65 and over, as provided in General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
All right, the motion under Article 27 is accept and adopt as printed. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 28. See if the town will vote to reaffirm and extend Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 56. Upon acceptance of this section by the town, the Board of Assessors may grant real and personal property tax abatements up to 100% of the total tax assessed to members of the Massachusetts National Guard and to reservists on active duty in foreign countries for fiscal year they perform such service, subject to eligibility criteria to be established by the Board of Assessors. The authority to grant abatements under this section shall expire after 2 years of acceptance unless extended by vote of the town. Said change to take effect FY 2020 and act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Okay, the motion under Article 28 is accept and adopt as printed. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 29. This is the first in a series of community preservation articles. And the Community Preservation Committee is charged with making a report to town meeting. And so generally what we're going to do is I'm going to recognize Bob Doan, who's a member of the committee, and he's going to give us the Community Preservation Committee report on all of these articles once I put a motion on the floor. So first with Article 29, which is to appropriate the following sums of money for FY21, estimated annual revenues, and put them into various categories. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the town transfer from FY21 estimated revenues of the Community Preservation Act Fund to the following: the sum of $177,600 to the Community Housing Reserve Fund, the sum of $177,600 to the Open Space Reserve Fund, the sum of $177,600 to the Historic Preservation Reserve Fund, and the sum of $50,000 to the undesignated fund balance for operating expenses.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded under Article 29 to make those various transfers of sums of money into various areas or buckets, as they're called, under the Community Preservation Program. So I'll now go to Mr. Doan on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee. While the microphone's going to Mr. Doan, I should tell you that Mr. Nixon, who is the chairman of the CPC committee, was unfortunately unable to be here, and he sends his regrets. Mr. Doan.
Hello. The community, these articles, as mentioned by the moderator, this article and the following 8 are the results of determining money to be spent from the Community Preservation Act. That act allows for 3% of property taxes plus funding from the state to be used in 4 expenditure categories: open spaces, historic preservation, community housing, and recreation. Annually, proposals prepared by town departments and other organizations are submitted to the Community Preservation Committee to seek funding. The committee, along with public input, allocates the available money to the various requests. The approved projects are then brought forward to town meeting for final approval. The CPA money cannot be used for other town expenses, so if any article is not approved at town meeting, the reserve money is returned to the CPA and will be distributed later. In this year's process, we reviewed all the applications that came in last September and held public hearings on each article to get public input and to dig deeper into some of the requests and ask questions. So the results of the following 8 articles is from those meetings, and the money was allocated accordingly. Sometimes the money was reduced for reasons of perhaps not having the total amount of money to fund all the requests, but for the most part, we were able to satisfy most of the requests. Thank you.
Mr. Doan, just before you sit down, so can I say that the Community Preservation Committee voted to recommend Articles 29 through 37 to the town meeting that they be accepted and adopted?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. Okay, any further debate? Thank you, Mr. Doan, on Article 29, the motion that's been made and seconded. Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 29, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 30. See if the town will vote to appropriate from the Community Preservation Act funds undesignated reserve $198,762.20 from the FY21 estimated revenue $142,987.80 for a total of $341,750 to fund the debt service on the outstanding land bank debt. Any funds left unspent in this article to be returned to the CPA undesignated reserve and act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 30 be accepted and adopted as printed. And as you just heard from Mr. Doan, the CPC committee is voted in favor of this article. Mr. DeCosta, you have debate?
Yes. You know, in the Finance Committee explanation, I wrote $553,700. That was my error, and it wasn't picked up until after the warrant went to print. So the correct number that we voted was the $341,750, and that's what's in the motion.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. DeCosta. Any further debate? I don't see any. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 31, see if the town will vote to appropriate from the Community Preservation Act funds a sufficient sum of money to fund the items in the table below, consistent with their respective applications. Any funds left unspent from this article are to be returned to the CPA, from which the appropriation is made as specified in the chart below, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into grant agreements, including the acquisition of a restriction, if appropriate, for the following: Community Development Partnership, Chase Library, Pleasant Bay Community Boating, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 31 be accepted and adopted as printed, and as you heard from Mr. Doan, CPC recommends favorably this article. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 32. See if the town will vote to appropriate from CPAG funds historic $75,000 to fund the repair and restoration of gravestones and monuments at Pine Grove Cemetery. Any funds left unspent from the article to be returned to CPA Historic Reserve Fund. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
The motion under Article 32 is the article be accepted and adopted as printed. CPC has recommended favorably. Is there any debate? Yes, Mr. Berry.
I just wanted to offer my unreserved support for this article.
Any further debate? Seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 32 so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 33. See if the town will vote to appropriate from CPC estimated revenues $250,000 to fund the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust, and to create and preserve affordable housing in the town of Harwich in the amount of $200,000, and to fund a part-time housing coordinator in the amount of $50,000. Any funds left unspent from the article to be returned to CPC Community Housing Reserve, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter grant agreements, including the acquisition of a restriction, if appropriate, with the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Motion under Article 33 is accept and adopt as printed, and CPC has recommended favorably. Any debate on the motion under Article 33? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 34, see if the town will vote to appropriate from CPC, Community Housing Reserve, $160,911, from the FY21 estimated revenue, $39,089, for a total of $200,000, to fund the rental assistance program for families earning 80% or less than average median income. Any funds left unspent in this article will be returned to CPC, Community Housing, and we authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into grant agreements, including the acquisition of a restriction, if appropriate, with the Harwich Housing Authority. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
The motion under Article 34 is accept and adopt as printed, and your CPC committee recommends favorably. Is there any debate? I don't see any. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 35, White House Field Lighting Project. See if the town will vote to appropriate from CPC, estimated revenue, the amount of $380,360 to replace the current White House Field lighting system with a new comprehensive lighting system. Any funds left unspent from the article to be returned to CPC, undesignated reserve, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that Article 35 be accepted and adopted as printed, and the CPC committee has recommended this article favorably. Is there any debate? Yes, sir. Let me get you a microphone. Hold on just 1 second.
Sandy McClarty, East Harwich. I was just curious what the dissenting vote, the 3 dissenting votes, what their reasons for dissent was.
From the Finance Committee, you mean?
Yeah, it doesn't say which committee, but...
Yeah, it's the Finance Committee. There were 5 in favor and 3 dissenting. Does anyone want to... Mr. Churi, you were listed on as one of those 3, if you...
John Chory, Finance Committee. Yes, there was three folks that voted no. I'm speaking for myself here on this one. And the reason I voted no is because there's a similar lighting, a lighting project, I don't know how similar it is, but another comprehensive lighting project that was voted on at the town meeting in fiscal year 2018 for a rough cost of $333,500. That project has not been initiated yet. It's still in a conceptual stage of being designed, spec'd out, and I can let the town administration speak to that more clearly on that project. And there's numerous other approved warrant articles at town meeting that have been approved over the years that have not been spent either. There's numerous projects like that. And given the time frame of this project, we're in the end of September right now. Baseball season starts, I think, the 1st of June or so. That's roughly, 6-7 months. During that time period, there's winter involved in there. So in my mind, I didn't see how this project has not been designed yet either, nor spec'd, nor any request for proposals been issued yet. And my concern was the time frame that we were going to try to get these lights in. The numerous other projects that have been approved by town meeting but have not been acted on was a concern of mine. And we had one article earlier in our meeting today, our Round Cove project that was funded or approved at town meeting a couple years back, and we approved additional funding for that project. In my mind, that's what happens when projects are not, or have been approved, but not acted on in a timely manner. Now, I understand there's extenuating circumstances in any project that goes on before the town, like the Round Cove project, for instance. That's a permitting issue that you really can't commence until you get the funding. So I kind of understand that funding. But in that particular funding, the additional revenues were coming out of the waterways funds to fund that. So that's a boating project, that money is coming out of boating revenues. So I fully understood that one. And while I don't like the delay, I like seeing projects, when they're approved, implemented in a timely manner. I can see the reasoning on that. On this particular project, the lighting, the Brooks Park field has been going on for close to almost 3 years now. It's a similar, it's a big scope project. I don't know how similar in size, but you've all been by Brook Park. You see the lights there. They're big lights. And the delay in that, it's been 3 years, and that project has not been implemented yet. I'm concerned that the project was approved at $333,500 3 years later, or whatever we do get an RFP, what that number is going to be, and we'll be back before town meeting, ask for additional funding. We've seen numerous other projects. I don't want to, what happens when projects aren't implemented quickly enough, like the Brooks Park, the library in town. That was delayed a number of years with the painting project, and that project escalated way up, a couple $100,000 more. Someone can correct me if it's more or less. So that's why I voted no on this project. I do not voting no. I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball. I think the program that Whitehall Field delivers, the Harwich Mariners are a great team. The Chamber of Commerce does a tremendous job in promoting that particular venue, and it brings lots of people in. It's one of the best, I think, things going on in town. It's a free program. People have been here to this program, have seen it. It's what I call a mom and apple pie event. So I'm not against the baseball thing at all. I want to make that perfectly clear out there. What I was voted against, and it was more just my thinking, is the delay that we implementing some of these funded warrant articles and delaying getting them implemented, and then the cost impact when we delay for significant amounts of time on these projects. So that's why I voted no. 2 other members of the committee voted no, and they can tell you their reasons, but that's my reason and my reason only, and I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chory. Is there any further debate on the motion under Article 35? Yes, sir. Okay, I'll get to you, Joe.
Hi, John Bathel, Pleasant Lake.
I just wanted to know what is meant by more cost effective. Is it going to take several years for the lower cost to pay out? Just more details on what's more cost effective.
Are you directing that to the previous speaker or to or in the
Whoever is best to answer it.
Mr. Powers, Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First, to the question by the previous speaker, what's meant by that is the type of lighting that's used. We're looking to progress to LED lighting. So that's what's meant by more effective lighting.
Well, cost effective, in other words, is it 10% less cost per year and it'll pay back in 10 years? What is meant, you know, there should be like a monetary amount.
I'm not able to speak to that particular question right now in that regard, but and I do hope to speak to previous question, but the long story short is this is a project that has been through the vetting process of the CPC committee. I know the Recreation and Youth Commission chairman would be here, but for a family wedding, and I'd like the opportunity in a moment to speak to the procurement process that was referenced.
Sure.
So I can tell you that it's meant to be better lighting, more cost effective because of the life of the bulb and how long that's going to last. But beyond that, I can't get into specifics of the electrical engineering part of it.
Okay, thanks.
So, Mr. Doan, can you address the lighting question? And then I can get to Mr. Powers on the procurement question. Bob Doan.
Yeah. Thank you. The lighting, when we looked at the proposal, I don't remember exact numbers, but the LEDs do draw considerably less power and would be less expensive. The other interesting part of this proposal is the amount was much higher, but the Mariners is putting in a substantial amount to lower the cost, so this cost is lower than the original amount that was submitted for this project. I also do want to just mention the time it takes to get some projects through. From a CPC standpoint, we have a agreement that all projects should be completed in 3 years. We request 6 months updates from each stakeholder on the projects, and then at the 3-year mark, we need to have an explanation why the funding should be continued. So we're very adamant that these projects don't hang on forever, and as long as there's an acceptable excuse, we will continue. Otherwise, we take the money back. And we had about 4 or 5 projects this past year that we rescinded the money that either weren't done or most likely it was excess money left over that wasn't spent.
Okay.
And those monies come back and then are reallocated again in another year.
Thank you, Mr. Doan. Mr. Powers on the procurement question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you to the previous speaker because I think it's an important fact to note that the Community Preservation Committee has been doing that due diligence year in and year out. In a previous life, I served for this town on that commission, and they've been dedicated to that and remain committed to it. As to another project that relates to this in the fact that it's lighting, I can only speak from my perspective when I was brought into this town as Assistant Town Administrator, and I began work as the part of the procurement team a year ago on the other project. And I would argue that today is not the day to walk away from those projects because although there had been little progress made, there has been significant progress made since within the last year. I refer to electrical engineering study that was conducted related to the the previous project, which would be the Brooks Park project. The procurement team, which I was not part of on that project a few weeks ago, took the initiative to also have electrical engineering study done on this article and this item. And that's to make sure that as we go for these lighting projects, the similarities between them, that we leverage that. And so we have the electrical engineering study that was needed for Brooks Park, and we already have the electrical engineering study that will be needed for White House field lighting. And so, again, I can't speak to what's happened in the past. I would ask you all, as I've asked the Board of Selectmen, is hold me to the responsibilities that you've given me, and we're working as quickly as we can and expeditiously as we can to work through these projects.
not the least of which because we know the Community Preservation Committee will come back and ask the difficult questions. So I do urge that you allow us to continue on. We are making progress. We are well positioned to hit the ground running on this project should town meeting adopt it, meaning we will begin the procurement process in earnest for those designs, for the bids, and everything that needs to be done going forward. So I do urge your adoption of this article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Any further debate on the motion under Article 35, which is accept and adopt? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 36, see if the town will vote to appropriate from CPA funds, estimated revenue $72,657 to replace the current fencing at Brooks Park baseball field. Any funds left unspent from this article to be returned to CPA undesignated reserve. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
The motion under Article 36 is accept and adopt as printed, and it is recommended favorably by the CPA committee. Any debate? Yes, in the way back. Put my other glasses on. Yes, ma'am. Somebody's coming.
Nice long walk. Hey, Deborah. I just have a question about
I'm sorry, we
repairing-
didn't get your name, ma'am.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry. Deborah Lopez from
Okay.
Harwich Center.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the fencing repairs, if that also included the fencing around the playground.
Okay. So, Mr. Doan, can you answer that? The question is whether the fencing repair includes fencing around the playground.
Yeah, it is my understanding it does not. It is strictly around the Brooks Park baseball field.
Ms. Lopez, this is not, it's just around the baseball field. This one does not include the playground. Any further debate on the motion under Article 36? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Article 37, see if the town will vote to appropriate from CPA funds, estimated reserve in the amount of $500,000 to construct a playground at Harwich Elementary School. Any funds left unspent from this article will be returned to the CPC undesignated reserve. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
The motion under Article 37 is accept and adopt. CPC recommends favorably. Is there any debate? Yes, sir. Is somebody coming from over your right shoulder there?
Good afternoon. I'm Jonas Robinson from Pleasant Lake. I'm Jonas Robinson from Pleasant Lake. It's a great idea to have modern, safe playgrounds for our kids in Harwich, but $500,000 to replace a playground in this era of fiscal conservatism, I can't see it. Thanks.
Mr. Powers, Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The brief history of this particular article is that this emanated from the school department, the Monomoy Regional School Department, through the Harwich Elementary School, the beloved Castle in the Clouds, as we all know, and tried to either repair, and then when that was discovered that repairs were not possible, to then proceed with a new project. About a year ago, when I was brought in as Assistant Town Administrator to weigh in on this project, we recognized that the project should be the purview of the town, so we changed that from the school department and the elementary school as the sponsors of that project, and the Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to be the sponsors of that. That's significant because the process going forward for procurement and validating the costs and all of that will be done through the town administration. The dollar amount that you're being asked to fund today is actually lower than the initial costs of what a playground goes for in this day and age to match the footprint of what was at Castle in the Clouds. So although $500,000 is a big number, the number that we were getting from other validated sources was beyond the 500,000. We know now that with the 500,000, we will make it work for whatever playground we can get for that amount in that space. But unfortunately, in this day and age of requirements of regulations, which did not exist in years past, and in some cases did not exist as recently as 5 years ago, we're now bound by more strenuous requirements for safety, and that's what leads to the cost that you see there. I do believe, and I will state today, that that figure of $500,000 is going to be an accurate assessment of what the bid should come in at. I don't see it exceeding that.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 37? Yes, Ms. Sabula. Somebody's coming from, I guess, your left, Linda.
Hi, Linda Sabula, Harwich Port. Question. From what I understand, community preservation money is supposed to allow the community to use it. I see we have another opinion here.
Yeah. Put your hat on.
So this is going to be on what is school property. When will the public be allowed to bring their children there who may not be in the elementary school but may be much younger to use these resources, or is it going to be restricted?
Mr. Powers, question of whether this will be open to the public, including those not participating in the school.
Thank you. It's my understanding that the new playground that's constructed will be available no different than Castle in the Clouds was, meaning it is an accessory to the elementary school, and when in use for the elementary school, we ask that private parties not be there, but beyond school hours, nights and weekends, and holidays, it's open to the community, as has always been the case.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 37? Looks like you're ready for a vote. Oh, I'm sorry, in the back.
Hi, I'm Jessica Muldoon from East Harwich. I currently have 3 children in the school system. I know Mrs. Oldeck, or at least she was here. I think the school playground services 400 or 500 children a day. Currently, they are on the grass or the blacktop. They really need this playground. I also know that the school itself has done fundraising, so it's not just looking for the CPA money. They've done 2 years, I think, of fundraising. So the community itself has come together and raised additional funds for this. I'd strongly urge you to support it. These kids need a playground during the school day. Thank you.
Any further debate? Looks like you're, is there somebody else? I'm sorry, over here, to my left. Somebody's coming, ma'am.
My name's Patty Watson, from West Harwich, and I would encourage you to vote positive for this article because there is a dearth of accessible playground opportunities in the town of Harwich, and it's a real attraction during the summer too for our visitors. So please support this.
Thank you. Any further debate under Article 37? I see a hand up in the middle over here. Could you stand up, ma'am, whoever it is? Yeah, thanks.
Hello, my name is Mariana. I'm from Route 39. Now with the pandemic that is going on, are kids using playgrounds really? Are they going out, 400, 500 kids, and using the playground? So does it worth spending that money on upgrading the playground now?
I don't believe there is a playground now, so I don't think there's one being used, but Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was reluctant to get up a third time to speak about this, but to that question and going forward.
And so you'll keep your comments just to the question.
Sir, yes, sir. Whether we can use playgrounds in pandemics is something, as we've heard earlier, with restaurants, town meeting, town government, is an evolving statement under the pandemic. The efforts for this playground were pre-pandemic, but there was an element in this discussion that a year ago was somewhat laughable, and that was the concept of an outdoor classroom. And so that's an element of this playground going forward. We should hope and pray that we have a future where children can play on playgrounds, and we should understand that if pandemics come back, as they tell us, they will probably likely do in a more increasing level, that we have an area that can be dedicated to outdoor learning as well with that playground. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Yes, there's a hand up over here. Somebody's coming, man.
Susan Smith, 2 Carroll Lane, West Harwich. As an educator and as a grandmother, when young families are looking for new homes, on the list of things is things to be offered to their children. And I think this is very important if we want to start to attract younger families to Harwich.
Thank you. Any further debate on the motion under Article 37? It looks like you're ready for a vote. So the motion on the article is accept and adopt. All those in favor of the motion as read, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 38. See if the town will vote to set spending limits for various revolving funds that have been authorized pursuant to Section 8.1 of the Town Code and act fully thereon. And then there is a list of revolving funds, which I'm not going to read. Mr. DeCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
The motion under Article 38 is accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. Is there any debate? Yes, sir. Mr. Convoy.
Okay, I wasn't sure where I should bring up this issue, but the Cultural Center is part of this revolving fund this year. Historically, we've spent $125,000 operating that building. This calls for a new spending limit of $225,000. There's also a lot of other issues with the Cultural Center. Years ago, the town meeting voted to turn that building and repurpose it for affordable housing. We voted on that in a non-binding way, but somehow this has gone from a vote at the town meeting of repurposing it to affordable housing to a long-term investment by the town. And I think that if we're going to have a cultural center, it should be brought up and voted on and approved or disapproved at the town meeting next year. Also, years ago, there was an article in the local paper that said this building needs $9 million of capital expenditure to make it to code and improve it. And that was before we started running it as a cultural center. The capital budget in 2023 calls for spending, I couldn't figure if it's $430,000 or $730,000 in capital. So this is something that has evolved in a lack of a transparent way, and I think it's got to come back to the town meeting and be voted on by this group. Thank you.
Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If you'll see in the warrant, beginning on page 36 and continuing on to page 37. Typically, the subsidy, so-called, for the cultural center would have come under the maintenance of facilities and other items, which we did earlier. However, because this is coming under the revolving fund, I made the decision to put it under this article. The previous speaker is correct in that the spending limit from 20 to 21 was increased for the Middle School Cultural Center revolving fund, and it was increased by the dollar amount related to the subsidy. That is to say, we increased the spending limit to account for the $125,000 a year subsidy that this town meeting has been appropriating for several years. We've done it now through the revolving fund because at this present time, the revolving fund can handle that addition. I would further argue that this might be one of those instances, much like today, where we see it in this town meeting, but we may not see it in this manner going forward, meaning we would resume past practice as we've done it before. And then lastly, and I'm going to look to my right just to make sure I'm correct, my understanding is that the Board of Selectmen prior years had voted for this cultural center to be active as the cultural center, to be subsidized, and we are in year, what year? Thank you. There was a 5-year extension on the study that is scheduled to end in 2024. So I would ask town meeting to adopt this because the net effect is that there is no change to what's been done in years past. The subsidy for the cultural center is $125. This year we're looking to do that through the revolving fund because we didn't have enough for free cash, and we do have the funding in the revolving fund. Thank you.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 38? Are you looking to speak, ma'am? All right.
Thank you. Noreen Donahue, Headwaters. So I'm just trying to follow this now. Does that mean that all of the money to be used for the cultural center this year will be through a revolving fund? And if that's true, does that mean that the money is coming from rents and fees and other things generated by the businesses that operate there? And would that in fact even cover things like the annual septic system payments and things like that?
Mr. Powers, questions of what's being paid out of the revolving fund.
Thank you. My understanding of this is that the $125,000 is recognized as the dollar amount historically that is required to, quote, keep the lights on, if you will, to have the building open and available for the renters that are there, and to make small repairs and supplies as necessary. I believe the septic comes under a different funding source altogether, but I'll look for validation. Sorry, no, septic is also through that one as well. So this revolving fund this year has a balance to cover this subsidy and has a sufficient balance to cover the other costs that are there for the remainder of fiscal year 21.
Ms. Donahue, follow up? Okay.
Thank you. I mean, it's getting late in the day, and I'm sure there's been discussions about this, so I would probably support it. I support it in theory, but if it's truly everything is going through the revolving fund, it doesn't seem right to make the businesses and things that are there pay for the utilities and other things that we've operated through a separate subsidy for years. It seems odd to me. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with the structure of revolving funds dispensing those types of expenses. So be it.
Anything further, Mr. Powers?
Just I would like to cry uncle at this point if the cultural center director would like to rescue me. She appears ready, willing, and able to do so.
Carol, is that you? Yeah. All right. Just introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Carolyn Carey, Community Center and Cultural Center Director. So there are no businesses inside the cultural center. There are renters, and the rent money is paying for those things that those individuals are using. So the tax dollars that used to come out of town meeting are no longer coming out of that. We've been able to raise enough revenue so that they can sustain inside the building and help with not having this building sit vacant. We are currently almost full. I do know some of our members are here, but we definitely are taking that out of the revolving fund, which is paying for the services that the individuals use inside their rentals. Did that help?
Yeah, I think so. Any further debate on the motion under Article 38? Looks like you're ready for a vote. I've got a bit of an obstructed view here. Reminds me of the old Boston Garden where they used to have those poles. I just kind of look around. So it looks like you're ready for a vote. The motion under Article 38 is accept and adopt. All those in favor of the motion so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 39. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to pay unpaid bills of prior years as provided for in General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 64, and to act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $3,845.83 be transferred from free cash, and the sum of $3,750 be transferred from retained earnings for the water department.
Motion's been made under Article 39. It's $3,845.83 be transferred from free cash, and $3,750 be transferred from retained earnings on the water department. Is there any debate? A motion to pay unpaid bills requires a 4/5 majority to pass, which means if it isn't unanimous, I would have to take a standing count. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 40. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $20,000 to help defray the expenses of the Chase Library and the Howardsport Library. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Chase Library and Howardsport Library trustees. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $20,000 be transferred from free cash for the purposes of this article.
Motion under Article 40 is accept and adopt as printed, and the sum of $20,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 41. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money for the Harwich Chamber of Commerce to promote the town and its business and cultural endeavors to advance economic development initiatives for and with the town of Harwich. Said money is to be used to manage and fulfill year-round visitor residents' business information services, promote and market the town, generate and initiate materials and activities that encourage the establishment of growth and sustainability of business in Harwich, and to implement economic development objectives and activities in partnership with the town. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant, and that the sum of $30,000 be transferred from free cash for the purposes of this article.
Motion under Article 41 is accept and adopt, and $30,000 be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Is there any debate? Looks like you're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. Article 42. To see if the town will vote to adopt the following as a general bylaw and to authorize the town clerk to insert it in the appropriate place in the code of the town of Harwich. The Finance Committee does not have a positive motion on this, but Mr. Patrick Otten, one of the petitioners, wants to make the motion, I think. I think he's in the back. If somebody can get a microphone to him.
Thank you. Patrick Otten, East Harwich. I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I have a second. So the motion is on the floor to accept and adopt Article 42. I'll now open debate. Mr. Otten, did you want to address the article? He needs the microphone back, I think.
Commercial plastic bottle ban. Effective September 1st, 2021, that's about a year from now, this proposed ban prohibits the sale of non-carbonated, unflavored drinking water in single-use plastic bottles of less than 1 gallon. There are the emergency exceptions, and the enforcement will be the responsibility of the town manager. Historically, we did not have or need plastic bottles for water. I did not grow up with them, but now the world is covered with plastics. Oceans filled with plastics. 80% of the ocean's plastic is single-use plastic. Our air, soil, plants, and animals, all life is affected by plastics. Why? Because discarded plastic is landfilled, incinerated, and degrades into tiny plastic particles we call microplastics, all toxic to life. It is estimated that we as humans ingest a credit card's worth of plastic every single week. Plastic is a foreign toxic substance. It's not something our bodies or ecosystems have evolved to deal with. So what are the costs to human health, cost to species health, the environment, and cost today, and the long-term 1,000-year future? There's no way we can estimate or know the dollar price, but it's very high. Corporations, the oil industry, will not make this change. The profits are too great because they don't have to pay for the environmental or health care costs. But you and I do. What are the costs of this proposal? The real question that we need to answer is, what are the costs to do nothing? Can anyone answer? There are many options for retailer sales. Is plastic recycling, which I follow religiously, the solution? No. Recycling is a hoax invented by the industry so that we'd all be more comfortable buying and using more plastic. The petroleum industry is investing in expanding plastic production threefold. With China out of the picture now, Kenya is now targeted for all of our plastic waste. Just ask the DPW head, what are the costs to take care of our waste disposals? I'm not against plastic. For example, we need medical plastics. But when we are talking about consumer-based convenience consumption of single-use items where there's a safe, credible alternative, using your own refillable, reusable water bottle that you use, you keep, you clean, and you take care of, which totally makes sense during any health concerns. Does it make sense to use single-use plastic bottles if you have to have water? Water sold to you at 9,000 times the price you pay for it at home. For the same price you pay for one 12-ounce bottle, you can buy 1,000 gallons of Harwich award-winning municipal water thanks to the Harwich Water Department. Across the globe, worldwide, communities are taking positive actions to limit single-use unnecessary plastic. A Cape-wide ban by all 15 towns would demonstrate that we care about the place where we live and the future of the planet. Last year, Harwich was first to pass the municipal ban, with 10 other towns also passing the ban. And now 11 towns have the commercial ban on their warrant. Passed so far, the commercial ban has passed in Brewster, Wellfleet, Falmouth, P-Town, and just a few minutes ago, Eastham also passed this ban. The BOS and all towns have approved the proposal. So, think of Cape Cod. Think of where you live. From P-Town, the Center for Coastal Studies, to Woods Hole, Hui, and all the efforts in between, Conservation Trust, the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, etc. et al. It is all an effort to bring consciousness into our behavior, being responsible for our actions. Think of your health, think of our environmental health. Let's make our woodlands, national seashore, ponds, oceans, beaches, roadsides, parking lots, our lives plastic-free. There is no away when you throw something away. We can make a choice for what is good for us and the environment. We can make the Cape a desirable destination resource. I love Cape Cod, this place where I live. Cape Cod, but where are the cod? Long gone. I don't want to get to the point where it'll become necessary for us to consider renaming Cape Cod Cape Plastic. Does that make sense to you? It would make me very, very sad. There's importance in everyday acts. We think globally, but act locally. Please vote to support this commercial ban of unflavored, non-carbonated, plain water in plastic bottles less than 1 gallon. This is a vote about human and environmental health. Send the message we care. I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Otten. Further debate, Mr. DaCosta, Finance Committee.
Thank you. The biggest problem the Finance Committee has with this bylaw, it is not about the town of Harwich. Even in their own explanation, the petitioners have cited national statistics, 1,500 plastic water bottles per second in the entire country. The petitioners are not addressing the national problem here. They're asking you to enact a bylaw. They were not able to tell us what percentage of the national problem Harwich is. They were not able to tell us what financial impacts this will have on the retailers in Harwich. They were not even able to estimate the potential cost to educate the public to this townwide change or to provide the enforcement they are looking for. And trust me, next September, they will be looking for enforcement. Most important of all, they are not done yet. Last year, they stopped the town with a bylaw from buying water in plastic containers for your town employees. This year, it is a new bylaw for everyone. Next year, it will be a new bylaw for carbonated beverages and a bylaw for nip bottles, juice bottles, milk bottles, and soon we will have multiple bylaws that are not through our integrated one bylaw. They have done this with 10 signatures on a piece of paper. This is not being brought forward by any of your regulatory boards, your policy board, or any part of your town government. If your Board of Selectmen tried to sneak a town-wide change through a town meeting without taking any of the actions of having public hearings and education on a subject like this, you would probably correctly vote it down. We are asking you to do the same thing here. Vote this down and refer it back to the selectmen to address the entire problem town-wide in a proper way with proper input, with help from the state for funding and with a single integrated bylaw to address the entire problem. The Finance Committee wants you to approach this the same way we'd approach any big town change, and that is by doing it the proper way. That's all we're asking, is to refer it back. You'll talk about this again in 2 articles when we talk about climate change. That's another big article that's coming before us that's requesting a big change, and they're going to go a proper route by making it a resolution and referring it back to the Board of Selectmen. We would wish this group had done the same thing. I don't think the first step is to make a bylaw in the town, and I'm hoping that the rest of you can see it that way and do this the way that you would ask anything else to be done that's a big change like this in the town. Refer it, you'll get a proper bylaw that does what we want it to do. You'll give the opportunity for the selectmen to ask the state for help and funding. Maybe part of deposits can go towards it, whatever. Right now, there's nothing like that in this. They're just saying, do it, and starting next September, you'll be forced to do it. Thank you.
Further debate? Yes, ma'am, in the middle was standing.
Janelle Brown, Harwich. I oppose this, and it's not because I am not an environmentalist, because I am. I oppose this because it's discriminatory. Why water? We want people to drink water. We don't want them to drink soda. We don't want them to drink Gatorade. We don't want them to drink alcohol. We want them to drink water. I want my kids to drink water. So, why are we targeting water? I went to the Mobile on 124 before town meeting today, and I bought all these water bottles to check out what the plastic is. I also bought the waters that will be allowed. I bought the seltzer, I bought the flavored water, and I bought the Gatorade. Guess what? It's all the same plastic. It's the exact same thing. So why are we targeting water only? It doesn't make any sense. That's the first point. The second point is this. The definition in the article says, a single-use plastic bottle is a beverage container made from any type of plastic resin. Well, Judith Underwood informed me the other day on Facebook, and I'm sure many of you saw, plastic has nothing to do with the oil industry. Plastic has to do with molecule structure. And guess what? There are plastics being made from biodegradable products right now. So down the road, when we do have biodegradable plastics, you can't use those either. So this definition is bogus. Okay, so that's another thing. Lastly, I'd like to point out that this particular petition is creating a job description for our town administrator. It's putting a job onto him or her, whoever it will be in the future as well. They are responsible for being the policing agent. Since when does a consumer petition create the job description? The way they're going about this is all wrong. You don't ban something when you want people to change their behavior. You lead by example. I applaud the idea, but lead by example and educate people. Don't try to ban things.
Further debate, Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You've been hearing considerable discussion about the recycling or not recycling. I want to go back to my prior life before I showed up in Harwich 30 years ago. One of the things that I did for the federal government is I contracted for EPA for recycling of materials that were generated in federal buildings in New York, New Jersey, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. I had substantial conversations with EPA representatives about the recycling and how it could possibly work. There's a very large economic component in this. There needs to be an aftermarket for you to recycle. The hoax that Patrick is talking about is that the petrochemical industry has basically created an economic construct where virgin plastic is cheaper than recycled plastic. You guys are not recycling your plastic. You're simply creating a different trash stream, whether you use the plastic or not. There's a cost to that. We're not getting money anymore when a truck goes out from our dump or transfer station with plastic on it. And I think you should understand that. My perspective on this has changed over the last few years, considering I'm raising a 13-year-old now who's a legal guardian. I don't want to leave a life to the next generation, which is awash in plastic, which is really what's happened. Many of you out there in the audience can recall getting a Coke or a Pepsi out of a machine, out of a glass bottle. That wasn't recycled, it was sanitized and it was refilled. Somehow we've gotten to the point where it's inconvenient for us to bring our own container and fill it up with water. I don't understand how we've gotten to this point, but we need to take a stand. And I do differ with Mr. DeCosta. It does start with us. If it doesn't start with us, who then?
Any further debate on the motion under Article 42? This woman right here in the front first, and then I'll go over here to the gentleman on the left. Hold on a second, we're getting you a microphone. It's coming right up.
I'm Cynthia Taft-Bayrill from Dundee Circle, and I support this petition, having been on the Board of Health here in Harwich when the single-use bag plastic went through. That was initially, folks were against that. It went through, and when people saw how easy it was to ease on over to reusable bags, I think people were very supportive. And the town doesn't monitor single bag use, so I don't think we're adding a job to the town administrator. And also having been in the prevention and wellness unit at the Department of Public Health, and we did study how other states do move on these issues. I think that maybe in order to move on this, maybe there might be other groups within town, or maybe partnering with the Board of Health might help the town officials to get the facts that they need. But I agree with Dana, that we need to move on this, and we maybe need to gather the facts, but we shouldn't just can it. The single bag initiative was raised by the citizens of Harwich, not by the Board of Health or anyone else. The people were initially very angry because they thought the single bag restriction came from the town. And I, having worked at the Department of Public Health myself, I went over to a number of people in Stop and Shop when they were bitching and moaning about the bag and said, excuse me, introduced myself, and I said, I'd just like you to know that it was your fellow citizens that initiated this. It wasn't the town, because another activity because they're bored. So I really think that we need to move on this, and if we need a few other bits of information, I would call and get in contact with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and with the Board of Health here and see how a number of interested parties, of officials and citizens, can help move this forward. Thank you.
All right, next I had a gentleman who was standing over here. Yes, with the orange hat on.
I speak in strong favor of this article. This is action we can take now. It's not something you postponed. It's not perfect. It does not include NIPS. Cape Cod Times says 1/3 of the trash roadside are NIPS. But this is something important that we citizens can do now. This is action we can take now. It does not have to be perfect. It is a good beginning. Thank you.
Further debate. Who's next? I see a hand waving over here. Judith Underhill.
Oh, there you go.
Judith, hold on one second. I guess this woman was standing before you, and I'll recognize her first. Go ahead, ma'am.
Mary Albus, West Harwich. I'd like to piggyback on my neighbor Sebastian's support for this. This is a global problem. We all know that. The fact that Harwich might have 12% waste that's plastic bottles, I don't think that matters. We need to look at the bigger picture here. Harwich needs to jump on this and ban plastic, single-use plastic. Ma'am, we need to ban all of those bottles that you bothered to bring here. But that's not going to happen overnight. We need to start now, okay? This is a small step. Falmouth has gone even farther. Not only did they ban plastic water bottles, they banned NIPS. Think about that. I once worked at a liquor store. There are a lot of NIPS that are sold. Falmouth knows that that's going to be an economic hit to their liquor stores. They banned it because they said, we are sick of the pollution. I have the very good fortune to live on the cusp of Bell's Neck Conservation Land. I spend a lot of time there. I bet a lot of you do too, and a lot of our visitors do as well, especially during COVID. I would have to say about 80% of the trash I see up there are plastic water bottles. They're just thrown aside in their trash cans up there. So please support this. It is a start, and this is a huge problem on Cape Cod and globally. Thank you.
All right, next I had Judith Underhill over here to the left.
Judith Underwood, Harwich
Judith
Center.
Underwood, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I like the hill, yeah. I'm one of your water commissioners, but I want to make clear that I'm not up here speaking as a water commissioner. I'm speaking as an individual. However, I would like to give a shout out to Patrick for recognizing that we in Harwich have award-winning water, the best in the state, they say, And we have an unbelievable water department. Like, these guys and women work so hard for us. Plastic, if you look in the dictionary, it still refers to anything that is oil or gas based. 5 years from now, there may be some kind of material made from perhaps seaweed that can hold a beverage. We're not there yet. For those of you that know me, in my private life, I work with companies and universities and nonprofits that are creating solutions for clean water and healthy and secure oceans, including the Navy. And I can tell you that having spent time up at Draper Labs, up in Kendall Square in Cambridge, those are the folks that put us up on the moon. They are the brightest minds that we have in this country that work on problems. I was up at a microplastic presentation there about a year ago, and I get updates from them all the time, so this has not changed. The plastic bottles, as we know them today, they break down into the microplastics, into the beads, and then they get into the food chain. So we are ingesting that. And they're getting not only into the oceans, but into groundwater as well. And they don't go away. There's a certain point where they don't break down anymore. And that's the issue. And the really cool thing I think about living in our community is we don't have to rely on our Board of Selectmen to bring up every single issue in this town. We can do this as a community, right? That is like so cool that we get to have these town meetings and bring up things like this. And as far as the acting locally and impacting globally, this is happening all over the globe. I don't know if you guys know, but there are now 12 lawsuits by states, communities, and organizations, and one of them is by a group of high school students against the oil companies for climate change issues and for pollution. The state of California is suing them over the fires that they're having now. So this might be a challenge for some people, I get it. But you know, you can put our really good Harwich water in a vessel that you can bring home and clean every day. And I would have mine under my chair right now, but as Mr. Ford pointed out, I'm not the young woman anymore, and I didn't want to run back and forth
No, I
to the
just said
ladies'
you were
room.
not the woman with the hat on.
So please support this initiative. It's really important. We supported the ban on plastic bags, right? That worked out okay. We supported the ban on plastic straws, except in certain cases, obviously, right? But I'm going to do this exercise really quick that we did about the straws. Everybody close your eyes, especially if you're over 35. Think back to your childhood. If you were coming to a football game or you were playing in the football game, would you have had a plastic bottle in your hand? No. You would have gone up to the stand and they would have given you something in a paper cup, for example, right? Or if you were a team player, they would have had one of those big thermoses with water, and you get the little paper cups. Or maybe you had the tin cups, right? Like in Girl Scouts, we had those tin cups when we'd go out on our hikes. Yeah, always tasted funny. Support this. It's important. It's important for you now, you know, right now. And here we are sitting on a pile of plastic, which is kind of funny. Not funny, but please support this. It's really important.
Okay, further debate on this article. Are you standing to speak in the back? Are you waiting to speak? Okay, if we can get a microphone first to this gentleman and then back there, and then I've got somebody over here.
Thank you. My name is Pablo Parada. I'm from Harwich. I also very much support this article. I personally try to lead by example. I care so deeply, in fact, that on a regular basis, I walk my street in my office and I pick up nip bottles, plastic bottles, because I am so sickened to think of all those plastics going into our water. I mean, we are a coastal community, and I have to tell you, the amount of plastics in the ocean is tragic. I have traveled extensively. You can go to the most far-flung places in the world where there's not a single soul. Look down on the ground and you will witness all kinds of plastics, bottles inclusive. We are a coastal community. We need to lead by example. This is a very small thing we can do. Retailers will absolutely find ways to sell us water in cups. There's already water in boxes. This is not about denying kids water and giving them sodas. This is about plastics in our water. It's an ecological issue. Thank you.
All right, somebody in the far back, Tana, all the way back, standing. And then I'll get Mr. Valentine. Are you waiting to speak?
Hello, my name is Bonnie Bridges. I live in South Harwich. This initiative builds on the municipal plastic bottle ban at our town meeting last year. Plastic is not biodegradable. It lingers in our environment for hundreds of years, killing wildlife, affecting the human food chain. The cost of plastic to our health, the well-being of our environment, and the impact to future generations far outweigh the price being paid. The reality is, we are subsidizing the consumption of this product with the well-being of the future. I am asking you to join, as 5 other towns on the Cape have done, to say no to plastic water bottles. It is an action that can make a difference. We do not need this product. As citizens, the buck stops here.
Mr. Valentine's next, and then this gentleman here with the hat on.
Thank you. I do, am I on?
You are.
I do feel compelled to say that we debated this as a board and didn't come to an agreement. My own concern is not that we don't want to protect the environment and reduce plastic bottles, but I'm always a little nervous about bans.
He has to
I think
recognize
historically we've been more successful when we give the reasons, first education, and we give people positive reasons to change their behavior rather than a total ban. But we did have a big discussion and we did have a debate, and we don't have a uniform view on this.
Thank you. This gentleman here with the hat on. Second row. Thank you. There's a microphone coming to you, sir.
How do you get her to be recognized?
John Wheeler from Harwichport. I'd like to move the question, please.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay. So a motion's been made to move the question. It means to terminate debate. It's a non-debatable motion. It requires a 3/4 majority to pass. All those in favor of the motion to terminate debate, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. If I don't get a unanimous vote, I have to take a standing count because it's a 3/4 majority. I can't declare it. So I'm going to take it one more time. All those in favor of terminating debate and going to a vote on this article, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. It's a unanimous vote, and I so declare it. So we're now going to go to a vote on the motion under Article 42, which is to accept and adopt as printed in the warrant. All those in favor of that motion, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Article 43. See if the town will vote to rescind the action taken at the annual town meeting, May 6, 2019, Article 50. Finance Committee does not have a positive motion. Ms. Brown, are you making a motion on this one? Okay. If somebody could get Ms. Brown a microphone.
I move that we accept and adopt the motion, the article as written in the warrant.
Do I hear a second? Okay, I heard a second in the back. So the motion's been made and seconded to accept and adopt the article as printed in the warrant. Ms. Brown?
Okay, so we just voted the previous article, so there's no need for this article, and actually this should pass because there's no need for last year's article to exist anymore. So last year, what we passed was Article 50 at the 2019 special town meeting to see if the town will vote to adopt the following as a general bylaw and to insert it into the code of the town of Harwich as Chapter 125, Article 1, Section 125.1. The procurement by the town of Harwich of either water or any other beverage in plastic containers of any size is prohibited, and the dispensing of water or any beverage in plastic containers is prohibited on town property and to act fully thereon. So that was last year. It did not have a policing source, so there was no way to enforce it. And also it put small nonprofit organizations such as Little League, football, Cape Cod Baseball League, Monomoy School District, any other organization that uses town property, it put them at a financial deficit because they were not allowed to sell bottled beverages in plastic containers. Most beverages do come in plastic containers. The ones that are boxed are much more money. Glass is much more money. I do know from a source that Cub Scouts, for instance, used to sell bottles of water at craft fairs, and that would help fund many of their field trips and supplies. And they were not able to do that because they didn't have a pool of resources to buy glass or boxed water, for instance. So now that we have this new article where we can't sell plastic water, I'm asking you to vote yes for my article and rescind last year's action.
Before I ask for further debate, I've been handed a note that the Board of Selectmen voted 4-0 for indefinite postponement. They were looking to postpone this article, so they're 4-0 against the article. Is there any further debate? Yes, Mr. McManus.
The article that we passed last year actually had a date of becoming effective that would have only affected this year. Unfortunately, this year, all of the events that Ms. Brown refers to have been canceled, so we don't actually know what the impact on nonprofits were. I'm involved with the Harwich Cranberry Festival, and as a organization, we decided to the extent we could to enforce the ban that was passed, even though it wasn't truly effective until the end of last year, and we did so by, instead of selling water bottles and other bottles of things, we put out a large 10-gallon container with a spout and a stack of cups for people to use if they were attending one of our craft fairs or the Cranberry Festival. And I think many folks very much appreciated the fact that they could get a drink of water to quench their thirst without having to shell out $2. It was, I think, one of the most popular things we had done in a long time. To rescind this effort, I think, is misguided. It is building upon what we just passed, and I think it should stay in place. Thank you.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 43? Is that Mr. Otto in the back? Yes. We'll get your microphones coming your way.
Again, Patrick Otten. So to refer to last year's municipal ban, which was passed, it refers to any plastic container and the sale or distribution of plastic containers on town property. So this is a little bit broader than just simply plastic water bottles, single-use water bottles, okay? So Ed McManus has said that he used paper cups in place of plastics. So that's a viable option. In terms of making profit off of selling items, there are plenty of alternatives. So just simply saying that they're no longer profitable is not true. Thank you.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 43, which is accept and adopt the rescission? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to quickly add that there is a small connection between this, any lost revenue or sales or even inconvenient expenses that we incur to reduce the amount of plastic in the world is connected to the discussion that's been happening nationally about racial justice, because the cost to us is very affordable, really, when we consider the cost to other distant places in the world that are affected by the consumer lifestyle that we are leading and guiding the entire global trend of. So I do think that we can absorb that cost with a sense of righteousness and that we are doing our part because we have also done so much damage.
Any further debate on the motion to rescind? It looks like you're ready for a vote. The motion under Article 43 is to accept and adopt. All those in favor, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Motion does not carry. Article 44. The Finance Committee did not have a positive motion on this one. Who's making the positive motion out there? Is Deborah Ennis going to make it?
I move that the town adopt the language set out in the article, not as a bylaw, but rather in the form of a resolution, and request the Board of Selectmen to convene a public forum for the purpose of discussing this resolution and the question of whether a bylaw is necessary in order to implement a climate policy for the town that is consistent with this resolution.
Do I hear a second? Second. Okay, so the petitioner has made a motion not to adopt this as a bylaw, but to adopt this language as a resolution and request the Board of Selectmen to convene, if this passes, a public forum for the purpose of discussing that resolution and the question of whether there should be a bylaw going forward to implement a climate policy that's consistent with the language in the resolution. So would you like to speak to your motion, Ms. Ennis?
I would, thank you.
Okay, you're recognized.
So I live on Birch Drive, and I've never spoken at town meeting before, so I'm a bit nervous.
That's okay.
And I'm here because I really care about our fragile environment and the effects of climate change. And I'm sure we're all aware of some of the extreme weather conditions around the country, the fires in the West, the hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, the freak tornado that came through Harwich last July, and the melting and breaking up of the Antarctic ice sheets. And there's consequences to these weather conditions having to do with disruption of life as we're used to, displacement of people looking for a more sustainable place to live, food prices and crop failures, and I could go on, but you're probably all familiar with a lot of these things. And what I'm aware of is how easy it is to say, what can I do? And to feel kind of hopeless and discouraged about the situation. So as a concerned citizen in Harwich, along with others, I've been involved with bringing this article to the town meeting for a vote so that we can show our town leaders as well as other residents of Harwich that we're concerned about the effects of climate disruption
and that we want to do what we can. And that starts with learning more, making changes towards reducing our fossil fuel consumption, and getting things like this recognized here at town meeting so that we can all take some steps in the right direction, along with the 14 other towns on the Cape who have a similar article at their town meetings, and asking our town leaders to do all they can within the range of what's economically and technically feasible. So there's no cost associated with this resolution, but that it will be something that we'll continue looking at so that we can leave a better environment and a clean and beautiful Cape Cod to our children and grandchildren. So I ask you to vote yes on this resolution. Thank you.
Any further debate on the resolution? I see a hand up in the middle. Over here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roseanne Shapiro. I've lived on Cape Cod almost 20 years, the last 10 in the town of Harwich. I love this town, and I want to ensure that it remains a vital community, attracting people with its beauty, culture, and diverse opportunities for every segment of the population. I'm speaking today in support of Article 44. You've all heard Deborah's statement about the crisis we are seeking to mitigate by passing this article. I speak now not for myself, I'm a senior, but for future generations. We cannot let them down. We must ensure that this town will be as vital for them as they grow into adulthood and raise families as it is for us now. The other day, I spoke with a young couple who have a newly established business in Harwich Port. They told me that despite the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, they had a good summer, with many visitors coming into their store to look around, make purchases. What I've seen over the past few months has echoed this information. Harwich Port streets filled with visitors, beach parking lots full, and eating establishments accommodating people in outdoor venues. Let's not lose sight of what will happen if we do not heed the warnings of scientists about the climate crisis. Voting in favor of Article 44 will ensure that the vitality of our beautiful town will not be lost to the changes we're already witnessing, not just on our planet, not just in our country, but in the place we call home.
Any further debate on the motion? Yes, gentleman over here to my left.
Sorry, last time I did not acknowledge who I am, and I am going to speak in support of this article as a resolution. Sebastian Mudry, West Harwich. I have been remapped into a flood zone. I abut onto 200+ acres, Bell's Neck Conservation, and I'm now in a flood zone that did not exist when I bought my property. We are in a crisis. This is global burning. In today's Boston Globe, The season of drought in New England, heat and lack of rain force water use limits, threaten plant and animal life. I didn't have to mow my lawn but for 3 times this whole summer. That's absurd. I support this motion, strongly support this as a resolution, and I thank you for bringing it up.
Any further debate on the motion under Article 44? It looks like you're ready for a vote. Again, this motion is in the form of a resolution, not a bylaw, and it requests the selectmen to convene a public forum for the purpose of discussing the resolution and the question of whether a bylaw is necessary in order to implement a climate policy for the town consistent with the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 45. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sufficient sum of money to supplement the Massachusetts Cultural Council annual allocation for community grant awards to artists, performers, and interpretive scientists who bring events and programs to local venues which enhance the cultural experience of Howard citizens of all ages and to act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant and that the sum of $33,900 be transferred from free cash for the purpose of this article.
The motion under Article 45 is accept and adopt. The sum is $3,900. It's proposed to be transferred from free cash for this purpose. Is there any debate? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read so signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. It is a vote. Article 46, excuse me. To see what action the town will take in regard to the herring fisheries and to act fully thereon. Mr. DaCosta.
I move that this article be accepted and adopted as printed in the warrant.
It's been moved and seconded that the article be accepted and adopted as printed. Mr. DaCosta.
Sorry. Each year I usually look at the counting of the herring at as the real first sign of spring. It generally brings about the optimistic feeling that winter is finally over. At the time of the herring count this year, however, things were not overly optimistic around here. Due to the many catastrophes, events in town, we were all facing a lot of pain. Pain of loss, physical pain, emotional pain, financial pain, and it seemed like that counting fish was not going to help. At the time of the herring count, the financial people who work and volunteer for you were looking at a $4.5 million deficit and wondering how we were going to make all this work. At that time, there were no signs of coming out of it. Then, earlier than expected, Governor Charlie Baker opened the golf courses across the Commonwealth. And as schools of herring worked their way up the fish ladder, scores of golfers stroked their way up the first fairway at Cranberry Valley. And we counted every one of them. Over 500 golfers signed up in a week. And it was the first real sign that things might get better. Our Director of Finance, Carol Coppola, who has worked very hard for you this year, had the quote of the year when she said the opening of golf courses released a pent-up need to play golf. Then as we rolled into June, we counted the beachgoers and we counted the trash dumpers. We counted everything, and soon the counts were going in a much better direction. And like the counting of the herring each spring, there was a new sense of optimism. The Finance Committee wants to thank all of you who contribute so generously to your town, and we urge your support for this article. Thank you.
I have a gentleman in the middle who would like to say something.
Thank you. Richard Houston, Harwich Center.
I couldn't recognize you behind that mask, Rich.
That's a good thing. I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Marge Marion and her role with this traditional article.
Yes, thank you.
And one of the casualties, shall we say, of the COVID situation is that the many volunteers in the town, both adults and students at the high school, were unable to do their visual count up at Hinckley's Pond Fish Ladder this year because of the safety concerns. But the automated count at Johnson's Flume did go forward, and there were almost 1 million fish that came through.
I saw that,
so,
yeah.
as Marge used to like to say, the the herring fishery is healthy.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you for bringing that along and mentioning Marge. From my perspective, whenever I see the herring fisheries article, I know the town meeting's about to end, and that's why I like it. So, but if there's anyone else who has anything they want to say on this article? No? All right, all those in favor of the motion to accept and adopt the Article 46, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting.
Mr. Moderator?
It's been moved. I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Mr.
All right.
Moderator? Mr. Moderator? Over here? Over here?
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to reconsider Article 42, please.
So a motion has been brought before we close the town meeting to reconsider the single-use plastic water bottle ban that we adopted. A motion to reconsider. Let me just get my chart. Okay, so a motion to reconsider requires a second. Do I hear a second? All right, it's been seconded. It requires a 3/4 majority to pass. So the motion to reconsider the action taken under Article 42 is on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there any debate as to why it should be reconsidered at this point? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Brown.
I don't know if this is appropriate, Mr. Moderator. I would ask the question. I intend to actually amend the motion, amend the article. So I don't know if that's relevant for me to explain that now.
If indeed the body decides to reconsider their action, an amendment could be in order. So yes, it's within the realm of debate for you to say why you want to reconsider.
May I say that now?
Yes, you may.
I intend to amend this article to remove water and include alcohol. I would like to change this from water bottles to nip bottles. I think that is a happy medium for everybody. I listened to most people's
Ms. Brown, I will tell you that I would rule that beyond the scope of the motion. The voters were not apprised that they were going to be considering a bylaw to ban nip bottles, and therefore I wouldn't be able to take that motion.
Okay. So I rescind that.
So are you withdrawing your request to reconsider?
Let's just see if we get 3/4 vote first.
So you're not?
No, I am not.
You're not, okay. So is there any further debate on the motion to reconsider Article 42? I don't see any. All those in favor of reconsideration, so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by saying no. The motion fails. I'll now entertain the motion to adjourn the annual town meeting. Mr. DaCosta? So the motion's been made and seconded to adjourn the annual town meeting. All those in favor of adjournment, so signify by saying aye. And those opposed by saying no. Those in opposition may remain. Thank you for coming and have a good day.